Faites l'appel à Monsieur le greffier, s'il vous plaît.
Monsieur le Sénateur Routier,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Osip,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur McLean, Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Balash,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Green,
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Ferguson,
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hilaire, Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre, Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent,
Présente.
Madame le Connétable de Sainte-Marie,
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen, Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade, Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Martin,
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sever, Monsieur le Connétable de Griville,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité,
Présent.
Madame le Député Martin,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Southern, Madame le Député de Griville,
Présente.
Madame le Député Hilton,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Lefondre,
Présent.
Madame le Député de la Trinité,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Louis de Saint-Sever,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Tadier, Monsieur le Député Noel, Madame le Député de Saint-Jean,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Higgins,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Masson, Madame le Député Pinel,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Martin,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Bryans,
Présent.
Madame le Député de Saint-Pierre,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Rondel,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Mezek, Monsieur le Député Louis de Saint-Hélier, Monsieur le Député de Saint-Ouen,
Présent.
Madame le Député Dublé, Monsieur le Député Labby,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Wickenden,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Bree,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Norton,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député MacDonald,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Sainte-Marie,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Truscott,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député McClinton.
Monsieur le greffier.
Prions Dieu, notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton Saint-Nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et l'affection de tous ceux qui le composent, et de le conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toutes les délibérations étant accompagnées de ta bénédiction, réussissent au bien et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plaise de commettre à leur soin, quand nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant, Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite en terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons aux ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et nous n'enduis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car toi le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre,
To vote.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen,
Sir, I seek your guidance. The Connétable is unwell, but my indications are that he's been taken unwell whilst out of the island. Are you happy with just a normal malade, sir? He's been unable to travel back.
If he's malade and you're willing to take the oath, then that's good enough.
je jure que Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen est tellement disposé qu'on ne peut pas assister aux tâches exposer sa santé. Monsieur le Député Southern, Monsieur le Député Tadier,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Masson,
To vote.
Sir, Deputy Masson is out of the island on state's business.
Right, sorry, out of the island, state's business.
Monsieur le Député Mezek,
To vote.
Sir, I beg your pardon, sir. The deputy's out of the island on state's business, sir.
Very well.
Monsieur le Député Louis de Saint-Hélier,
Sir, Deputy Lewis is out of the island on state's business.
It's business.
Madame la députée Dublé.
Therefore, les États sont constitués. Like all members and members of the public, no doubt, I woke up to the news of what seems to have been a terrorist suicide bombers attack in Manchester last night. We will soon be turning to the important business of the day. But before we do so, let us take a brief moment to reflect that for 22 people who have died, most of them young people with everything to look forward to, their future on this earth has been taken away. And for many more people who were close to them, parents, siblings, family, friends, partners, today and the coming weeks and months will be important only to remember those who have died. On behalf of us all in this assembly and in this island, I say to them all, our hearts go out to you. A book of condolences will be opened today in the public reception area of the Royal Court building, at the other end of this building, for islanders who wish to sign it. And I have asked that flags be flown at half-mast today. On a more cheerful note, I'm pleased to welcome, on behalf of you all, Monsieur Manuel Bautieux, the Director General in the British Islands of the Alliance Française, who's in the gallery watching some of our proceedings today. It is very good to see him here. The Alliance Française in Jersey, as he will know, is the third largest branch of the Alliance in the British Islands, and it is especially good to see him here. There is nothing else under A, and B and C, the tabling of subordinate enactments. Documents presented are as on the order paper. D, notification of lodged propositions. The draft official publications, Amendment number 2, Jersey Law, P32, lodged by the Chief Minister. The draft health insurance performers list for general medical practitioners, P33, lodged by the Minister of Health and Social Services. The draft States of Jersey transfer of functions, number 9, Health and Social Services to Environment Jersey regulations, P34, lodged by the Chief Minister. The Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal reappointment of members, P35, lodged by the Minister of Social Security. The draft Sea Fisheries Inshore Trawling, Netting and Dredging Amendment number 4, Jersey regulations, P36, lodged by the Minister of the Environment. The draft Sea Fisheries Inshore Waters Amendment number 3, Jersey regulations, P37, lodged by the Minister of the Environment. The draft Drainage Jersey Law 2005 Appointed Day Act, P38, lodged by the Council of Ministers. The States Members Remuneration Review Body Implementation Pay Recommendations, P39, lodged by the Privileges and Procedures Committee. The draft F Navigation Rules for the Air Jersey regulations, P40, lodged by the Minister for External Relations. The Medium-Term Financial Plan 2017-19, Amendment to Funding for Fee-Paying Schools, P41, lodged by the Minister for Education. Counter-Terrorism and Security Act 2015, extension to Jersey by Order and Council, P42, lodged by the Chief Minister. Under E, in accordance with Standing Order 34, the proposer of the Millennium Town Park additional open space and public parking, P123, that is the Commissar of St Helier, has given notice that it is to be withdrawn. There is nothing under F or G or H. Questions. Written questions. The Deputy of Grouville will ask a question of the Minister for Treasury and Resources regarding communications with the Board of the Jersey Electricity Company in respect of the energy plan and standby charge. Deputy Musson will ask a question of the Chief Minister regarding requirements for the new Chief Executive Officer of the States of Jersey to have experience in electronic or digital services. The Deputy of St John will ask a question of the Minister for Social Security regarding the child component of income support. The Deputy of St John will ask a question of the Minister for Treasury and Resources regarding the income that would be lost in tax revenue by replacing the child allowance with a dependence allowance. Deputy Southern will ask a question of the Minister of Health and Social Services regarding potential changes to the structure and delivery of health and social care services. Deputy Southern will ask a question of the Minister for Social Security regarding the prevalence of zero-hour contracts. Deputy Southern will ask a question of the Minister for Education regarding projects funded from the Pupil Premium Scheme. The Deputy of St John will ask a question of the Minister for Education regarding the reintroduction of standard assessment tests at primary school level. Deputy Southern will ask a question of the Minister for Social Security regarding the survey which underpinned the report entitled Living Longer, Thinking Ahead. Deputy Southern will ask a question of the Minister for Health and Social Services regarding the survey which underpinned the report entitled Mental Health Quality Report 2017. Deputy Higgins will ask a question of Her Majesty's Attorney General regarding the role of jurats in a remise de biens. Deputy Higgins will ask a question of the Chief Minister regarding human rights audits undertaken in respect to the practices and procedures of Jersey's courts and tribunals. Deputy Higgins will ask a question of the Chief Minister regarding the duties and targets assigned to the former Assistant Chief Minister with responsibility for financial services, digital, competition and innovation matters. Deputy Higgins will ask a question of the Chief Minister regarding the work diary and travel of the former Assistant Chief Minister with responsibility for financial services, digital, competition and innovation matters. Deputy Higgins will ask a question of the Minister for Infrastructure regarding the odour control systems to be fitted to the new sewage treatment works at Belazan. Deputy Doublé will ask a question of the Chief Minister regarding the Ministerial Subcommittee tasked with finding a solution to the problems of financing students. We now come to oral questions. The first question is asked by the Connétable of St John of the Chief Minister. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Further to a meeting held in March 2014, described on page 28 of the report R45 2017, and attended by the Chief Minister, which led to the formulation of financial directions for the Jersey Innovation Fund and an agreement to increase the level of risk on loans not being repaid from 10% to 50%. Will the Chief Minister explain why this was done without the Assembly being informed?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. This matter was raised at a Public Accounts Committee hearing last week. In that hearing, it was acknowledged that the Assembly should have been informed that the financial direction estimated the level of risk of failure at 50%. Although the timing just before an election was difficult and I don't believe any further decision was needed, a statement or report could have been provided and it was not.
Supplementary.
I don't feel the question has been answered, but I will continue. Does the Chief Minister not agree that had the figure of 50% been given when the debate took place, many members may have voted differently?
So that may be a conclusion of some members who supported the creation of the Jersey Innovation Fund, but other members during that debate in their own comments said that they thought that whilst there was no agreement to a specific failure rate in the actual proposition, they themselves talked about a 50% failure rate. Some spoke about a 70% failure rate. The Minister, when he's before scrutiny, spoke about a 70% failure rate. The question perhaps should be which now with hindsight was the correct rate. And now we see with hindsight that actually the 50% rate, that when Treasury started to look at how you could deliver this type of funding to these innovative ideas, it was going to lead to that sort of failure rate.
Constable Greville.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister tell us who made the decision to increase the risk level from 10 to 50%?
So that's another good question. Listening or looking through the Hansard of the Public Accounts Committee hearing, and some members of this Assembly were there, it is clear that the Innovation Fund Board came and made the suggestion that the idea of 10% or 20% did not work, and they proposed that it should be increased. And there was a conversation to 50%, as the former chairman said in his hearing, and they proposed that at a meeting that I was at. I've got to say I think that's a reasonable assessment of how these type of investments function from experience elsewhere. And then that conversation, together with further work that Treasury and Economic Development did, led to it being put into the financial direction.
Deputy Southern.
Sir, surely the criterion used to set up the Innovation Fund was not hindsight, but setting up proper procedures, checks and balances within the system correctly so that these sort of problems could be ironed out beforehand. Is that not the case? Does the Chief Minister not agree?
So I'm not sure what sort of problems he's wanting ironing out. The proposition did not have a failure risk percentage included in it. The report, of course, we know did. There were suggestions in that report of 10%. The Economic Development Minister, whilst at a scrutiny hearing, suggested 70%, a 70% figure, as was explained post that, would be a realistic figure for those who not only just failed but didn't reach their full potential. It is, and I think it was right, to say that there would potentially be a 50% failure rate. The problem is, as the Controller and Auditor General suggested, that was not relayed back to this Assembly in an appropriate way. And again, we know from the hearings last week that the suggestions were that both the board felt that actually you wouldn't get that through prior to the election because the time period was too long, and it was therefore not acted upon. That's where the problem arose.
If I may, sir, supplementary. The steer, perhaps, that the Chief Minister wants from me is that there should have been measures put in place in setting up the scheme that no political pressure could have been brought by any political members surrounding this scheme on the board members themselves, because we now hear that they were subject to political pressure. Does he not agree?
I do agree with that, sir, and I was surprised to see that in the Hansard of the hearing of the Public Accounts Committee. And that is something that I am going to consider and investigate further, because there should not be, in regard to individual decisions like that, political pressure. The whole point of having the expert, innovative board was that they would get independent advice and then they would make the recommendation to the Minister. That should have been the point, that there was ministerial involvement, not the other way round.
Deputy Kevin Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst we all support new business, sir, does the Chief Minister believe that a failure rate between 50 and 70% acceptable with public funds?
Sir, if we are not prepared, and actually I haven't heard members say they were not prepared to accept the 50% rate, with hindsight the question is, how was a figure in a report that wasn't that then a different figure was put in the financial direction and the states were not informed of that? That should not have happened. But sir, if we wanted to invest in innovative ideas, innovative companies, you have to accept that level of risk. That's what Elsewhere shows us. Banks do not invest in these innovative startup ideas for the very reason that they have a fiduciary a responsibility to shareholders, sir, not to put that level of risk on their funds. That's why governments set up in innovation funds like the one that this Assembly approved.
To what extent does the Chief Minister believe that his inability to put into action and bring to the states his decision to transfer responsibility for the Innovation Fund to his Assistant Minister in his department, why that took 13 or 14 months to bring to fruition? Surely the Chief Minister himself must hold some responsibility for that absence of steering the responsibility.
So it depends how one wants to think that the Chief Minister might have been responsible. With hindsight, and hindsight is a pleasant experience to have, finding fault with others, with hindsight, perhaps I should have pushed the scrutiny panel to undertake their work quicker than they did. But I wanted to work with the scrutiny panel. They wanted to undertake reviews. There's documentation on file where they were asking me, first of all, not to lodge the changes, then to lodge the changes so that they could do reviews. They did 2 reviews. So my approach is a consensual approach. I don't like to see division between ministers and scrutiny. With hindsight, perhaps I should have pushed for the debate and then allowed scrutiny to review it within the 6 weeks. And of course, members can say, well, therefore I was at fault. And in that regard, I was at fault.
With regard to the business of political pressure, will the Chief Minister investigate that and report back to the states as to where the political pressure was coming from?
So I've already indicated that I wish to investigate that further. I'm not sure whether I will be able to conclude that, bearing in mind the former chairman, when asked at the Public Accounts Committee, said that he was not prepared to issue further comment.
Deputy Tadier.
Thank you. The Chief Minister talks about the power of hindsight, but could he talk to us about the power of foresight? Was there at any point during the establishment of this framework the foresight to see the obvious problem when you change from a relatively low risk threshold to one of 50%, where these companies can't even get loans from a bank because their businesses are so risky, but government will quite happily throw money at them? Isn't there some foresight amongst ministers at the time to see that there are obvious problems on the horizon?
So that question gets to the fundamental heart of whether governments are going to step in and support innovation in a way that the private sector does not and cannot, for the reasons that I have suggested. The board were quite clear, and again, the former chairman was quite clear, appearing before Public Accounts Committee last week, that had one taken what was in the report, the figure of 10%, as I say, not in the proposition, rather than a more appropriate in-depth look at what the potential failure rate would be, which the Treasury function then undertook, one would not be supporting innovation. It's a straightforward decision. The board said that. They came and told ministers and officials that, and experience elsewhere shows that. So some members were not in favour of supporting innovation. That's absolutely right. But these types of companies, this type of approach, we should expect that rough percentage of failures.
So may I raise a point of order? Just for the record in future, I don't wish to pick a fight here, but for future reference, and we do only have 10 oral questions today. I think there's been a previous ruling by a previous speaker that supplementary should be allowed because it's within the supplementary questions from individual members that one teases out the information. I just wanted to put that on record, sir.
I don't think it was a position of generality that was being expressed on the last occasion. I think it was expressly being said in relation to the election of ministers or panel chairman, I forget which, and it's not a point of general application. Deputy Lafontre.
Yes, could the Chief Minister, given his earlier comments, confirm that even at the end of April 2015, which is some 5 months after his initial proposals for the transfer of functions, the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel was still seeking clarity from the Chief Minister as to what his final proposals actually were?
So it's not going to be useful for the chairman and myself to argue across the Assembly. Of course, there was a change, and that's quite clear from the QC's report, that I had initially intended to create the post as a ministerial post within the Chief Minister's department. That would have been my ideal situation. That came across those people who didn't want to deliver that and said, why not just do an assistant minister? But the deputy or the chairman knows, sir, that they in Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, if my memory serves, and I could be corrected, had sight of the proposed changes prior to that date.
Deputy Martin, and then a final supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. And in hindsight, can the Minister remember when this chaos was going on, nobody knew who was running the show? Did not one of his ministers or assistant minister who should have been in charge come to the Chief Minister and say, this is not working? And if it wasn't working, why didn't the Chief Minister put in the right person with the responsibility at the time until the rules were changed? Why did he ignore it and just keep going as it was? Thank you, sir.
So I didn't ignore it, and I think it's clear from the confusion in the QC's report that I tried to ensure that responsibility was clarified, but legally we were at the position that we were at, and it's not just about a legal position, of course. It is the working of officers within a department that were sharing information and providing information to only one of those individuals rather than what would have been appropriate, the two of them, so that they could have made properly informed decisions. It's quite clear from the report. The Chief Minister works with goodwill and persuasion when he's outside of the legal responsibilities. So I was trying to work to alleviate that situation. But it's quite clear from that report, sir, that confusion, because of what I've just said about who was being given information and from whom information was being withheld, it continued.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has accepted responsibility for not reporting back to this Assembly over the increase in risk. You said there was a failure. Thank you. There was also a failure to put into place the ability for the fund to benefit from equity growth in those businesses that were successful. Again, another failure. The Chief Minister, or any minister, is responsible for his assistant ministers. And as his assistant minister was responsible for the fund, would the Chief Minister therefore accept that it was ultimately his responsibility? And may I suggest he think carefully what he does about it? Thank you, sir.
So we can quite easily use this report for political point scoring, for personality beating up, for suggesting that the Chief Minister should act in a presidential style across all departments, and that the Chief Minister's word should be the writ of law, as the Constable has just tried to do by suggesting that I should have said that departments and officers in departments should have done something, and when they have not done it, despite what the law says, I personally should be responsible. We do not have a prime ministerial or a presidential system, and I don't for 1 minute think that the Constable wants that system, because he's voted against changes and suggested he wouldn't support changes to the ministerial system. If the Constable reads the report, and I think he was, and reads the hearing of Hansard of the Public Accounts Committee, he will see that that quite clearly shows that there were failures of the officers in the EDD department. And the reports say that. And although we've now published the report into ministerial responsibility and action has been taken, there is further report into the responsibility of officers in that regard. Just because somebody comes into my office and has a conversation with me and asks my opinion, as they did about the risk of failure, it doesn't mean I am the decision maker. Under the law, others are the decision maker. People ask my opinion on all sorts of things, but I am quite clear about where legal responsibility and who is the decision maker absolutely lies. And in both of those points that the Constable, and I see others shaking their heads, so this is the system that we work in. If members want to see a different system, then, sir, I say let them propose it. I have seen from this report the changes that I think need to be made to this system to improve it, and I ask members to get behind those changes.
We come to question 2, which Deputy Taddier will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services.
Thank you. Given the contents of Cannabis, the evidence for medicinal use, in particular page 31 to 33, will the Minister require the Medical Officer of Health to issue an apology and a correction following the Medical Officer's statement to BBC Radio Jersey on the 3rd of May that there is no evidence in the Barnes report that smoked cannabis is effective?
Minister.
No, sir.
So it's unfortunate that the Minister gives such a short and response in the negative, because be under no illusion that the Medical Officer of Health went on the radio and misled the public by stating something which was categorically false, either because she hadn't read the report and understood it correctly or otherwise. Now, this is a very serious matter, given the fact that 8.15 in the report quite early on states clearly that smoked marijuana, including other forms of it, have all been shown to be efficacious to various extents in a variety of pain settings in good quality studies. And they concluded that there is good evidence for efficacy of cannabis for pain relief in various formulations and in a number of settings, brackets my emphasis, including smoked marijuana. So given the fact that it's demonstrable that the Medical Officer of Health has misled the public and circulated an email clarifying to States members, would she not put on record publicly her correction and her apology?
Sir, the Medical Officer of Health is an independent person. She has absolutely nothing to apologise for. In fact, I thank her for her advice and her other professional colleagues that have provided through the Misuse of Drugs Advisory Council. That advice has enabled me to propose removing the legal barrier currently preventing the medicinal use of cannabis, sir. As a fully qualified specialist in public health medicine, she is entitled, and in fact I think required, to express her own independent review. And I would not expect otherwise. So it's very convenient to quote parts of the Barnes report. However, in the conclusion, it stated that medical recommendation would be that cannabis should not be taken as a smoked product.
So, of course, no current medical officer is going to suggest that it is smoked, but that's not what she said. And whilst the member might be entitled to her own views, she's not entitled to her own facts. And the fact is that the report said there was clear evidence that smoked marijuana is effective in a variety of settings for pain relief, and it cited 4 good quality studies. Yet she went on the radio publicly in the name of the Minister to say that there was no evidence in the Barnes report that it was effective. It's categorically untrue. This isn't a political issue, it's a matter of fact, which she needs to correct publicly. She stated incorrectly publicly one thing, and she should be going on record to state and clear up that misapprehension. Is that not simple in the mind of the Minister?
No, sir. The simple matter is that the Medical Officer of Health has a professional view, sir. She equated it actually to me. It would be just like there were only 5 studies, not 4 actually, 5 very small studies on smoking, sir. And the evidence of the effectiveness of this was very clearly explained and summarised in the end report, sir. The reason there is so little scientific evidence about the effectiveness of smoked cannabis is because amongst 20,000 references reviewed by the Barnes report is because it is considered unethical to do trials where people are required to consume a substance that is recognised as harmful. That is the smoke, sir, which is known to be carcinogenic. It would be just like doing trials of alcohol consumption and saying, well, it made their pain improve as well it might have done, albeit whilst they were intoxicated. But that would not be good grounds for doctors to start recommending alcohol as a safe and acceptable treatment for pain control.
Dr. Sutherland?
Thank you, sir. And the issue here is not the legalisation of cannabis or otherwise. It's the quote taken from expert advice, taken out of place and wrongly. So the Barnes report states clearly, we conclude that there is good evidence for efficacy of cannabis for pain relief in various formulations and in a number of settings. Good evidence. And yet our own officer denies this. will the Minister then point out and remind members of the public that this evidence exists, and will he publicise the findings of the Barnes report?
So the Barnes report is available to anybody that wants to go online and click on that particular report, sir. But it's very convenient, isn't it, to score points against an officer that can't stand up for themselves. But they always conveniently forget the end of the recommendations. The medical recommendation would be that cannabis should not be taken as a smoked product, sir. I don't think it could be clearer than that.
And the question was to the Minister and not to the officer. And will the Minister take responsibility for spreading the word that there is good evidence of pain relief through cannabis?
There is good evidence of pain relief through cannabis, so that's why we're considering bringing products forward. But it does say in the Barnes report it should not be taken as a smoked product.
Final supplementary.
So, does the Minister accept that smoked marijuana, as stated by the Barnes report, says that there is good quality studies and evidence that smoked marijuana does provide effective pain relief? Yes or no?
So what I accept as the conclusion in the report, looked as a whole, is that the recommendation will be that cannabis should not be taken as a smoked product, and that's because of the known carcinogenic effects.
We come to question 3, which Deputy Martin will ask of the Chief Minister.
Yes, thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise whether Senator Ozef received a letter of appointment as one of his assistant ministers on the 4th of November 2014 before the Council of Ministers and Scrutiny Panel chairman were appointed? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, that is correct. I was re-elected as Chief Minister on the 3rd of November, and the following day I wrote to each ministerial nominee, appointed Senator Ozef as an Assistant Minister, and tabled before the Assembly my nominations, including an outline of the position in respect of Senator Ozef.
Supplementary, sir. Is this a usual practice? Wouldn't the Chief Minister normally wait for her council and have a discussion? And secondly, did he appoint his other Assistant Minister on the 4th of November with an appointment letter?
So I think it's fair to say that it's not usual, because in this instance, at that point, I was both the Chief Minister designate for the new term of office and the Chief Minister, because the Chief Minister remains Chief Minister even whilst there's been a Chief Minister designated appointed until the final Minister is appointed. So in this instance, I was able to appoint Senator Ozef as an Assistant Minister, but I think it is potentially something that PPC might want to look at into the future, because any new Chief Minister that's replacing a Chief Minister that's retiring or not been re-elected would only be able to appoint them then for a set number of 2 or 3 days, depending on how long that process took. So it is an anomalous situation where you have one Chief Minister then becoming the next Chief Minister, and I will be speaking to PPC to see if they want to make any changes to that particular piece of legislation.
So, would the Chief Minister not agree that I see the Chief Minister's point that he was already Chief Minister, but this was a new Council of Ministers, and even in the letter of recommendation or recommendation for the Economic Affairs Minister, the Chief Minister took out 3 responsibilities which he'd already given to his Assistant Minister without any discussion. And did he know then that as a Minister was going to be elected? Because it was a contested. Deputy Andrew Lewis went for the job. So I'm really, really disappointed, sir. This is, and doesn't the Chief Minister then also agree it's about time we sorted out how, when and who is elected as Assistant Ministers? Thank you, sir.
Yes, I do, sir, and that's why I said what I did at the last state sitting, and ever since then, sir, people have been accusing me of a power grab. It's not a power grab, it's about making the system fit for purpose, it's about avoiding those anomalies, and it's about creating unity in this Assembly for the benefit of the public. Assistant Ministers that can work in departments, help Ministers make decisions, put their skills and talents towards the executive, and at the same time scrutinise other departments as well in the best interests of the public, sir. The Deputy is absolutely right.
We come to question 4, which the Constable of St Helier will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. In relation to the new sewage treatment works in Belazan Valley, will the Minister explain what the relationship is, if any, between the department's agent Cascade and Grant, Midge and Swaco? Sorry if I haven't pronounced their names correctly. And will he also explain why a full site layout of the proposed works was not part of the initial planning application?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So there's actually two unrelated questions here, so I may take over the 90 seconds to answer them both fully, sir. Cascade Consulting are the environmental consultants appointed by my department to advise on environmental issues on the new sewage treatment works, the STW, project at Belazan, and to coordinate and prepare the environmental impact assessment for the scheme. It should be noted that in 2015, Cascade Consulting were acquired by the engineering and environmental consultancy group, Ricardo Group. Groch Miji, I share the Constable's struggle to pronounce that word, sir, are the technical consultants appointed by the department to provide technical support on the STW project and are currently charged with the civil design of the new department, of the new plant, sir. Groch Miji were taken over by Swaco Limited in 2016. So Groch Miji and Swaco are now one and the same company. Swaco have an extensive background in the water industry, particularly in the design of sewage treatment works. There is no relationship between Cascade and Swaco. So, with the second question, with regards to the planning application, when the initial plan application was submitted on the 6th of February 2017, planning officers required further detailed drawings of the new plant before they could advertise the application. These additional drawings were prepared and subsequently submitted, but when the application was first advertised by the Planning Department on the 21st of March 2017, the additional drawings were the only drawings uploaded to the website by planning. This oversight was in fact spotted by my officers, and planning were notified and the site layout plans were uploaded on the 5th of May. All drawings have since been available to view and for comment on the planning website. However, I have asked my officers to request an extension to the planning consultation period to allow the public to fully review these additional layout plans, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the Minister for rectifying what appears to have been a mistake in the uploading of the plans. In respect of the first part of the question, which is about the relationship of the department's advisors to the procurement of the plan, is it not the case that in 2009 this consultant, well, let's call them Swaco, although then they were called the more unpronounceable name, that this consultant advocated a perimeter in terms of odour nuisance of level 5. Now, as the consultant acting for the procurement, and they are now accepting a lesser odour nuisance. My concern, sir, is clearly that if you, as a department, employ a consultant to advise you about environmental risk, and they end up working for you, is it not a case of poacher turned gamekeeper?
Sir, I'm not aware of the details that the Constable is suggesting there, sir. So, as far as I'm aware, the definition of the different levels, you have the 1.5 level, the 3 level, the 5 level, and the 10 level, haven't altered at all, sir, in that period. But I will investigate and get back to the Constable.
Thank you, sir. The Constable and members may like to look at question 15 of the written answers, which does show a table showing the different odour levels. Can the Minister tell me, though, why his advisors, if they're trying to minimise the odour, the scheme doesn't include the covering and odour controlling of primary settlement tanks, which would cost an extra £4.1 million, and is not included in the £75 million estimate? So if you're trying to keep the odour down, why haven't you actually covered those tanks?
Sir, it's a shame that the Deputy, I know he couldn't attend the last state sitting for an urgent matter, sir, but that was on to then, sir. The advice that we were given is that at the moment we will not need to cover the tanks to keep the odour down to acceptable levels. If it turns out that we do have to cover those tanks in the future, we will make sure that the current design is capable of being adapted, sir. But I'm not in the game, sir, of spending taxpayers' money unless it's absolutely essential to do so. And 2 weeks ago I mentioned that's in a similar way that we are not building a denitrification plant at the cost of some £40 million at the STW, because at the moment we don't know that it actually would be necessary, and it would be unwise to spend taxpayers' money on something that is potentially unnecessary.
Final supplementary. Thank you. We come to question 5, which Deputy Lafondre will ask of the Minister of Treasury and Resources.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether there was or was not a deficit in the public finances when he took office at the end of 2014? Thanks, sir.
Minister.
Sir, in setting our fiscal strategy, we seek to advise the advice of the Fiscal Policy Panel. In recent years, that advice has been to run deficits and support the economy until it returns to capacity. To answer the Deputy's question as to the financial position for autumn 2014 when I took office, I refer to the 2015 budget agreed by the states in September 2014. With the measures approved in that budget, the forecast was for an operating deficit before depreciation of £31 million in 2014 and £42 million in 2015, which took us to the end of the first MTFP period. The actual results for 2014 were an operating deficit of 17 million and after depreciation 76 million. The results for my first full year in office, 2015, improved to an operating deficit of 5 million and after depreciation to 50 million. In early June, sir, I will present to members the outturn for 2016 and the current forecast for the period 2017 to 2021. Those will show that whilst 2016 has been an outstanding year for public finances, the headwinds and uncertainties remain. Nevertheless, we remain on track to achieve our aim of balancing the books over the MTFP period.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I thank the Minister for his response, or the clarity of his response. Were the earlier income forecasts too optimistic, leading to higher expenditure and a deficit during that first MTFP period, in the Minister's opinion?
Sir, income forecasts have proven to be optimistic for that period of 2013 to 2015, but of course hindsight is a great thing. Since I took office, we've spent some time in reconstituting the income forecasting group and ensuring that external members are added to that group, and indeed making great emphasis on ensuring that forecasts for the future are prudent. I should say, sir, that I have no doubt that I will have criticism in the future as we generate some surpluses as a result, and I think the outturn from 2016 will prove the point. So in many respects, one can't win. But yes, to answer the question, that I think they were at that stage on the optimistic side.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to rack my brain to remember if at any time the Treasury Minister told us of the improved figures and the reduction in the deficit, because from my recollection, we've been told there's been a deficit, we've always been in deficit, we're going to be in a deficit, and so on. Did the Minister at any time update the states with an updated assessment showing it wasn't as bad as it was expected to be?
Yes, sir. In fact, the state's accounts, which are published and available, gave the position for 2015 to which I've just alluded. With regard to 2016, which are going to show further improvements, those accounts have yet to be published, but I'm expecting them to be so within the next week, and that will give an updated position for the Deputy and members.
Supplementary.
I think really just if the Minister could confirm as a matter of fact that in the 2015 medium-term financial plan that the word deficit is used on a number of occasions. So, for example, it refers to placing Jersey on a path to fiscal balance and addressing any structural deficits. It refers to graphs and charts which show that the current budget, including depreciation, will move from a deficit of 90 million. This suggests that the net fiscal position moves from one of moderate deficits to one of significant deficits throughout the 2015 to 2018 period. Accepting the comments he's made, that things have obviously changed, could he just confirm that the word deficit does appear on a number of occasions throughout that document? Thanks.
Yes, it does, sir, and I think I made that perhaps clearer at the beginning. We have been running deficits, and indeed that is following the advice of the Fiscal Policy Panel to so do. All I can say to members is that the financial position has improved. We are broadly on target, on track to achieve balanced budgets by 2019. That's the end of the MTFP period. That largely is as a result of a very good outturn from 2016. We shouldn't, however, get carried away by that outturn on the basis that there are a significant amount of the gains there as a result of, dare I say it, Brexit and the depreciation of sterling, because our investment returns have performed particularly well as a result of that, which has had a slightly skewing effect on the numbers. We've also seen some increased income tax numbers, some of which we believe possibly could be one-offs, but further analysis is being undertaken. So good news, but there are still clearly some headwinds which we face, which we need to manage as we go forward.
Come to question 6, which Deputy Higgins will ask of the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. In light of the state's expenditure on public relations consultants, legal representation, and civil service time in preparation for the publication of the independent Jersey Care Inquiry's report, will the Chief Minister undertake to investigate what measures, if any, can be taken to ensure that there is equality of arms for all parties involved with the inquiry to be able to respond to that report?
Thank you, sir. Equality of arms, of course, is a principle which forms part of the right to a fair trial and doesn't relate to a public inquiry. However, I understand that the inquiry will treat all interested parties equally and provide the report to all parties at the same time, and I will consider any measures which might help support the victims and their families in responding to the report.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Will what he's talking about in terms of support include some assistance with, I believe everyone's going to get 2 hours notice of the report. No doubt the Chief Minister will have a range of civil servants or lawyers, each examining probably a chapter of the 500-page document, so they can answer questions in no time at all. Will the Chief Minister agree to some finance for example, the Care Leavers Association or others, so they can get a similar number of people to examine the chapters so they can ask questions or respond to the report?
Chief Minister.
So just to show how out of touch Deputy Higgins is with the amount of staff in my department that do this sort of work. I've agreed, sir, with a group of interested states members that one of them, together with myself, Deputy Taddeo, actually, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, will meet with care leavers and consider these issues about what support and how we might offer support during this particular period.
Deputy Higgins.
Just following up on the last one, on the level of support. Obviously, the publication of the report is going to bring back some awful memories for some of the victims of abuse. Can the Chief Minister explain what he's going to do to try and help those who find it a traumatic experience and may need some counselling or assistance in other ways?
So I know that these are issues that the Health and Social Services or the Social Services Department are considering and putting in place. I know that some individuals who were entitled to money under the compensation scheme were also entitled to support of the nature that the Deputy is suggesting. So some may still have access to that, others may not, and others may require more. I know that the Health Minister will look on those requests for more, and this will be part of the conversation that we'll have with the point of view that it really is important that individuals are supported through what is going, again, to be a very difficult time for them as their stories are told in the public domain, some of them for the first time, and as they have to answer questions, and then they look to life beyond the publication of the report.
Final supplementary.
No, sir, other than say I'm looking forward to the publication of the report.
Come to question 7, which Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services.
Thank you, sir. Given that a majority of family nursing and home care domiciliary care workers have rejected new terms and conditions offered by its management, and the potential impact that this could have on the delivery of domestic care service, will the Minister advise what measures, if any, he is considering to ensure continuity of or a replacement for this service as previously assured?
Minister.
Thanks, sir. So I'm pleased to report that family nursing and home care have been working hard, supported by staff from my department, to deal with the situation outlined by the Deputy should it arise. The priority is to ensure patient safety and continuity of care, and it is clear from my discussions with family nursing and home care that the bulk of the hours of care required can be covered by staff who have chosen to stay with family nursing and home care.
Supplementary?
Does that mean, as the Minister must be aware, that the vital element of continuity in the relationship between care worker and client on such things as getting people dressed, on bathing people, continuity of people is absolutely vitally important in assuring that clients feel comfortable with the service he provides?
So, as I said in my previous answer, the priority is to ensure patient safety and continuity of care. Family nursing and home care have advised me that they will be able to provide that. And I would like to thank them for their proactive approach and thank my officers for continuing to support family nursing and home care as it transitions towards a new service model.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. The Minister said that he was satisfied after talking with family nursing and home care that there would be sufficient workers to do what's actually required. Will he tell us what the percentages of the workers? Is it 10% going to be doing the work of 100%, or is it 20% doing the work of 100? What numbers is he talking about, and can he ensure that they can actually do that care?
So I can tell the Deputy, I can't tell him the percentage, but I can tell the Deputy it's changing every day as people consider their options and then sign up.
Deputy Southern.
Is the Minister aware that the figure quoted by officials in the Union is that 2/3 of domestic care workers who are affected by the change of conditions and terms and conditions of employment have actually refused to sign contracts? Can he assure this House, can he guarantee this House, that he will be able to, through family nursing, deliver the same service with 1/3 of the staff?
So it's not me that will be delivering the service, but it is family nursing and home care. And they have assured me that the situation is changing daily and that they can ensure their priority for patient safety and continuity, sir.
And does he guarantee that, sir?
So I'm working with family nursing and home care. If there were a problem, there's another 20 providers to help pick up the slack.
Deputy Tadier.
So what does the Minister understand by the idea of the race to the bottom, and does he believe that the terms and conditions being imposed or suggested at family nursing and home care are an example of this?
No, sir, I do not accept that, and I also do not accept that the floor of this Assembly is a place to negotiate wages and conditions of any organisation.
And what about the first part of the question? What about the idea of the race to the bottom? Does the Minister know what that is, and what does he think about it?
I thought I'd already said, sir, I do not accept that it's a race to the bottom.
Point of clarification, if I may, before I have my final supplementary, if that's what I'm on.
You're about to be.
Clarification. I missed what the Minister said, something around 20 people or 20
other
care
service
workers.
providers.
Again, sir?
There were 20 other service providers who can step in if family nursing failed, as I understood the Minister.
In which case, sir, my final supplementary is obvious. So he cannot guarantee continuity in any shape or form because he's going to use one or several of the 20 other providers with different staff in order to prop this service up. Is that the case?
Absolutely not, sir. It's not I'm going to use. If there's change, sir, members of the public who need services choose who they wish to provide their service, sir. My officers, if there is a need to change service provider, my officers work very closely with them to ensure patient safety and continuity during the transition. But I'm advised, sir, that it's unlikely that we'll need to do that.
We come to question 8, which Deputy Higgins will ask of the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister provide his assessment of whether the cost for litigants in person to access transcripts or recordings of court hearings and trials and other limitations on such access are appropriate, and whether justice in Jersey is thereby available to those least able to afford legal representation? And if his assessment is that they are appropriate, would he explain how?
So I'd like to ask Senator Routier to act as rapporteur, please.
Thank you, sir. As I'm sure the Deputy will be aware, the rules on access to transcripts or recordings of court hearings and trials follow the UK practice and have been agreed by the bailiff as Chief Justice. These rules are set out in the published Court of Appeal rules for transcripts. I understand that the rules do not provide for any exemption from paying of the fees. However, a litigant in person is entitled to an exemption certificate for stamp duty. If he's entitled for a certificate for stamp duty, it would in practice be exempted from paying for a transcript.
Supplementary, sir. I find this very interesting because I've been assisting or working with a number of people who are litigants in person who've paid more than the zero that the Minister is talking about. You're saying that a litigant in person can obtain them, but the truth in reality is they cannot. They are paying large sums of money. And in other cases, they are being refused access to a transcript because the judge in question, or the master or whoever, is refusing the litigant in person to have those tapes or transcripts. What does the Minister say to that?
The decision I'm aware that is made by the Viscount, who makes the decision about whether people are exempt from the paying the fees. If the Deputy has any specific cases like this that he wants to refer to the Access to Justice panel review, which we're carrying out, I'd be more than happy to receive that, and if necessary, we would write to the Chief Justice to look into it.
Thank you, sir, and I'm pleased that mention was made there of the Access to Justice review, because I wondered if this issue had been covered by it, and when can we expect the review's findings to be published?
It's fairly imminent. We have been waiting for the Law Society to come forward with their latest findings on the legal aid system, and I believe that is due to be with us very, very soon. So once we've had time to assess that, we actually do have a public hearing with members at the end of this week, which we will be asking members of the Law Society and the Consumer Council and others about the latest position to where we get to. So once we've had that public meeting this Friday, and we've had a chance to review the legal aid submission from the Law Society, we'll virtually be able to conclude our work.
The Assistant Minister will be aware that things are moving quite quickly in the UK courts, where the Supreme Court is being live streamed already, and that cameras are being allowed into the Crown Courts. Does the Assistant Minister think that there is mileage in suggesting similar measures for Jersey, so that actually the courts, like our States Assembly, can be completely opened up where appropriate, have live streaming, automatic transcripts and the equivalent of a Hansard, so that anybody with an interest can have that made freely available to them, both at cost and otherwise?
Certainly the review which we've carried out, we've looked at the facilities across all of the courts. As the Deputy is a member of the panel will be aware that we have visited the court facilities, and there's certainly room for improvements to be made, and I think, along with all of these things, it's a discussion to be had with the court itself to decide what is appropriate for going forward. But certainly, I think there is room for improvements with regard to making accessible features for the public.
Final supplementary.
Yes, sir. If I can again seek clarification before I ask my question. Clarification was the Assistant Chief Minister said that litigants in person could obtain the tapes and transcript for nothing. Is that correct? So therefore, those who cannot afford it will be able to obtain those copies without paying a fee. Just clarify that point, please.
The mechanism for receiving free transcripts is if somebody is exempt from stamp duty. So the decision is a judicial decision which is made by the Viscount. So there are times when it may well be refused, but that's certainly that there is a mechanism that some people are able to receive free transcripts.
Final supplementary.
Yes, I must admit I will be asking afterwards what those exemptions are. The final question is to do with the refusal of some litigants in person to be able to get hold of transcripts or tapes because the judge in question refuses the tape to be released. Does he think that is correct, is right? And if not, what actions will he take to change the system?
There are published guidelines of how the assessment is made with regard to people being able to get transcripts free, but I'm certainly not going to second guess the decisions of the court.
I come to question 9, which Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Social Security.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain the choice of words tighten benefit rules as an option presented to members of the public under question 9 of the survey undertaken for the report Living Longer, Thinking Ahead?
Thank you, sir. Last October, I launched the first part of a major review into income in retirement and the Social Security scheme. Living Longer, Thinking Ahead asked for the public feedback on these subjects, given that many more people are expected to live longer in the future. This review is looking 30 years ahead so that we can plan how the Social Security scheme should change to meet the needs of this and future generations of islanders. The outcome of this review will help people in Jersey achieve and maintain financial independence in the future while safeguarding the most vulnerable in our community, a strategic goal of the Council of Ministers. It is only right that we, the public, have an opportunity to give their views about all the choices which include tightening the rules for benefits and who can claim Social Security scheme benefits. The questionnaire provided a balanced approach, looking at 6 options for possible changes to the Social Security system. It included increases to how much individuals or businesses pay into the fund, as well as changes to the rules around benefits paid out of the fund. It is important to note that there were also free text questions to give people the opportunity to tell us in their own words their views and ideas on the areas we could look at over the next few years. I'm very grateful to the 1,300 people who took part. Thank you, sir.
Can the Minister explain to members what checks were performed on this survey, particularly by the Statistics Department, if they were available, in order to ensure that all the questions asked were balanced, even-handed, and not weighted in any way whatsoever? Were they value neutral?
Yes, sir, they were. This is the first of 2 consultations that we're doing over the next 2.5 years. As the Deputy will very well understand, the Social Security system is extremely complicated. The questionnaires or consultations were aimed to be very clear and simple so that people would be able to answer them. And the questionnaires included tick boxes ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the next question gave the people the opportunity to write in their own words what they thought about each of the options.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister state how much she thinks would be saved in terms of fraud or error if the benefit rules were tightened?
No, sir, I couldn't say that because any detection of fraud or error is a very flexible day-to-day system, so it's not possible to estimate what any cost would be saved.
So would the Minister look into that and return to the House, with to the Assembly, with an answer?
So it's not possible to give an answer on a projection. We don't know what the benefit changes are going to be yet. This was only a consultation, and all that's reported in the review are the results of the consultation. It's not a political document at all. It's merely the results of the consultation. And until we receive the results of both consultations, the next one hasn't gone out yet, then it's impossible to say which areas of the benefits will be changed.
Final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. The importance, the Minister's answer actually indicates the importance of asking value-neutral questions. And I'll just take you members through the 6 options that were provided by the department to illustrate where they went wrong, I believe. In terms of areas that people felt the government should look into, in terms of the social security scheme, there were the options businesses to pay more versus people to pay more. Seems fairly obvious, one or the other. Secondly, pension goes up less quickly, or higher pension age, which might be phrased, people work longer, but higher pension age, in any case, or pension goes up less quickly. Again, balanced, it seems to me that there's 2 logical options. Then goes on to say, less benefits, when they actually mean fewer benefits, but let's leave that for the moment. Fewer benefits paid out other than pension, or tighten benefit rules. Now, tighten benefit rules doesn't say change, doesn't say increase, it says tighten. There's a whole set of values that suggest that people are conning, people are getting away with not paying their contributions. The fact is that these benefits are contributory. Does the Minister not accept that using the word tighten benefit rules implies a whole set of scammers and skivers, and we could save significant money through this mechanism, when in fact that's not true?
So,
does the Minister agree?
Question, not a speech. You did just.
Thank you, sir. I'm really not quite sure what the question was, but
Well, you're asked to agree with the long preamble.
tightening, all I can say is by tightening the benefit rules, it really means keeping keeping the range of existing benefits, but limiting the cost by changing the criteria for claiming them. So it doesn't necessarily mean removing them, as I think the Deputy mentioned. And as I say, there are many levers involved in this, and this is only the first consultation paper.
And we come to question 10, which the Constable St Helier will ask of the Solicitor General.
Thank you, sir. Given the impossibility in even the smallest parish of accommodating all those entitled to attend a parish assembly within the parish hall, will Her Majesty Solicitor General advise whether, as a matter of law, parishes could make use of a referendum in making important decisions, and if so, under what conditions?
Solicitor General.
So there is no statutory mechanism for the holding of a referendum as such at parish level. Under the Referendum Jersey Law of 2002, the states may by act resolve that a referendum be held on any matter, and the act may apply provisions of the Public Elections Law in connection with holding of the referendum. And then the new draft Referendum Jersey Law, which was approved by the states on the 28th of March, will make similar provision, but with the addition of detailed provisions regarding the appointment of a referendum commission, campaign spending, lead campaign groups, and so on. But it's clear that none of these provisions can be invoked by a parish instead of the states, so as to apply at parish level. So the short answer to the question is therefore, as a matter of law, the parish cannot make use of a referendum in the statutory sense of a referendum law in making important decisions. However, the essential nature of a parish assembly should be kept in mind. Under Article 23 of the Rates Law, a person is a member of a parish assembly if, among other things, the person resides in the parish and is registered for the parish as an elector in public elections. So the electorate of the parish forms the assembly, and if the motion is put to the assembly, that motion is in effect put to the electorate of the parish. Of course, the practical reality of holding a parish assembly is that the entire electorate cannot possibly be accommodated in the parish hall to vote on the motion. Moreover, the vote is not a secret ballot in the way that it is in a public election under the Public Elections Law. But on the other hand, there is no legal requirement for the assembly to be held physically in the parish hall. An assembly can be convened at a location able to accommodate larger numbers of parishioners. There is also no objection in principle to the parish circulating a questionnaire to parishioners to elicit their views, albeit at an unofficial level, on a given matter, subject to...
Mr. Solicitor, you should be answering in 1.5 minutes, so if you could bring your answer to a close. Thank you.
Beyond these limited possibilities, there is no legal mechanism for a referendum in the accepted sense of that word.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And I would be grateful if the Solicitor General could furnish me with his full answer in due course, and the other constables. So is it not the case that the parish assembly could agree in a properly convened assembly to hold a referendum on a specific matter? And if the parish assembly then agreed to hold a referendum and laid out the procedure, then that would have the same standing, same legal standing as a parish assembly decision.
I think the answer again is no, not in the accepted sense of a referendum under the referendum law. The answer is no.
Deputy Secretary.
Thank you, sir. Could the Solicitor General explain whether, if not legally, but perhaps in a de facto or customary manner, there are standing orders which govern the parish assemblies, including the tabling of propositions, amendments, lodging periods, etc. And if so, would these apply universally, uniformly across the parishes?
So the procedures for the holding of parish assemblies are set out in the 1804 law on the subject of parish assemblies. So that is a relatively short law, which is all that I'm aware of that governs the procedure for convening a parish assembly, who has the rights to be present and speak and vote at the assembly. Beyond that, I'm not aware of specific procedures that have universal application amongst the parishes.
Thank the Solicitor General for that clarification. I was wondering whether the 1804 law had actually been unofficially superseded by the parish manual, which is called Make It Up As You Go Along when it comes to parish assemblies. And I think we all know in reality that we've been at different parish assemblies.
Don't think that's a question for the Solicitor General.
We've all been at parish assemblies where, for example, amendments are put to a rate where 4 amendments have been put on the floor at the same time, and then you vote on the amendment you like, rather than taking the amendments in each order. And we've also seen recently in St Helier that amendments have been tabled, almost negating the original one that was put to the Assembly. And it seems that nobody really knows how or when or what the procedure is. So would it be helpful, is the question to the Solicitor General, if a type of standing orders could be looked at so that the members of the public and members of the Assembly, for whom, of course, it's the most important individuals within the parish system, arguably, know exactly what they can and can't do when it comes to parish assemblies?
It's not really a question of law, but...
So I think so. That's more a matter of policy and one really for the Comité des Connotades, not really for me.
For the Comité des Connotades. Deputy Buell.
Has there been any consideration to changing the 1804 law should super constituencies come into place, and if there are issues that require the Assembly's vote? And what happens if there are assemblies held in neighbouring parishes that form part of the super constituency, that produce conflicting results?
Sorry, that falls outside the scope of the questions. Permitted supplementary, which is about referenda and parishes. Deputy Higgins.
Could the Solicitor General tell us that is the 1804 law written in French, or are the other laws governing the parishes also written in French? And not even current French, I'm talking about ancient French or whatever. And is it not the case that they're so vague as you could drive a coach and horses through them? Anybody who wanted to?
That also is outside the permitted questions. That is also outside the permitted question, which is the questions about referenda through parishes.
Okay, it may be true though, sir.
And it may or may not be, but this is, and I know that question time is running shorter than sometimes might have been expected, but still. We now come to...
Sorry, so I have a further...
final supplement.
Two questions. So I'm grateful to the Solicitor General for his answers. He did say that a larger venue could be looked at, and of course that's been done in the past in St Helier, but with about 18,500 people entitled to take part in decision-making at the parish level, that clearly is not an option for St Helier, and I think even St Mary would struggle. Does this not suggest that we do need to review the law and come up with a law that is more suitable to the 21st century?
Sorry, Conatub, the Solicitor General's job is to advise the Assembly on what is the law, not what the law ought to be. It's members' job to decide what the law ought to be.
I'm grateful, sir.
We come now to questions.
Sir, with hindsight, given that we've only used something like 1 hour and 20 of our 2 hours question time, does the Chair regret at one stage closing down on supplementaries questions? We had plenty of time to ask as many supplementaries as we like. Would you consider, with hindsight, which is today's favourite word, with hindsight, that you might have allowed question to flow a bit more naturally?
I'm sorry if members think I've not allowed questions to flow naturally, but the standing orders provide that at a maximum of 2 hours is allowed for question time. It doesn't say that 2 hours must be taken up every time, and I must say that I thought that I had permitted quite a long time in relation to some of the questions. For example, I note that the first question of the Chief Minister went on for some 15 or 16 minutes. I beg your pardon, longer than that, nearly 20 minutes.
And yet I was refused a supplementary.
So it seemed to me that the balance was about right, but there you go. We come now to questions to ministers without notice. The first question period is the Minister for Education. Deputy St John.
Thank you, sir. Further to my written question to the Education Minister with regards to standard assessment tests, he suggests that this year it is a pilot test. Can he confirm whether they will continue within the future?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to the Deputy for the question. It allows me to vocalise the situation that we are in currently. We ran a very small pilot last year to just identify if this was effective. So the standard assessment tests are not like the ones in the UK, which carry quite an awful reputation with them. We wanted to make sure that we were able to ascertain that the new curriculum that we put in place was particularly working. So we, like I say, we ran a pilot last year that was very effective. So we went to the heads and said, would they be happy for us to run a standard assessment test, or SATs as they're known, within their schools? They said yes. That has been done just fairly recently. I haven't had the feedback yet from the heads, but once I've had that, then I will take an assessment on that particular thing. And if they've worked, then we would carry them on. If they haven't worked, if there's any concerns at all, we would stop them.
So, supplementary. Can I ask the Minister if he's at all concerned with the news from the NSPCC with regards to examination stress on pupils, whether it is actually appropriate to introduce SATs exams into primary school level at this point in time?
Thank you, sir. I think there are two parts to this particular question. One is I met with the NSPCC just last week in regard to exam stress. Their focus is particularly on secondary school students who are taking GCSEs, but they understand it is something that concerns us down through primary. What the Assembly needs to understand is these SATs are just one small part of a large form of assessment right across the board that teachers do almost on a daily basis. And it is not, as I say, like the UK. We have actually designed it for ourselves. It is to ascertain where the students are at that particular point in time and whether the curriculum is working. It is not meant to create any form of stress. If it would, I would cancel it immediately. And I can report I spoke to 2 heads last week who reported that because they'd underplayed this, because the children thought it was really something they were actually due to do anyway, although it was different and they quite enjoyed the difference, there was no concerns on anybody's part.
Thank you, sir. In his written answer, he says, in Jersey, the tests are not being used in the same way as the UK. Can he explain to members what in detail what the differences are and why we should have reversed a decision taken some time ago to abandon SATs as being not in the pupils' interest? We should reinstate them.
Yes, sir. Like I say, the tests have been reintroduced to verify that the new curriculum that the teachers and the heads and the unions have been very much part of, and it's what we set out at the top of our agenda in our 4 principles, whether that is actually connecting and working in the way that we expect it to. We have removed certain elements, I can't give them the detail, but I'm happy to do so, of the SATs that gave grave concern in the UK. We don't want to subject our primary children to any form of stress whatsoever. And I can verify, as I said just earlier, that if we were to, once we have done this and once we've had the feedback from the heads, show that any of the children were subjected to any kind of a stress, we would stop it immediately. So it's just a pilot, as I say, this year to make sure that we are on track.
Deputy Cabinet.
Thank you, sir. I have actually just pointed this out to the Minister. The new sewage treatment plants, with the guide on page 15 of the written answers, with the new plants, the actual odour zone shifts slightly to the right and will in fact cover half of Hope Valley School. Will the Minister for Education be pressing the Minister for Infrastructure to cover the primary settle tanks and eliminate as much odour as possible?
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Deputy for that. He did draw it to my attention. I hadn't seen that before he showed it to me. I used to be Chair of Governors for Hope Valley some time ago, for 9 years actually. And during that period of time, Hope Valley was subjected to quite a various amount of smells that came from Belazan. So as much as the school is used to it, he's quite right. I will look into the situation and see if we can resolve it. Thank you.
Dr. Norton.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will be aware the Arts Centre gives very valuable work to education with regard to youth theatre, TIA and much, much more, and their involvement with many of the island's school children through the Arts Centre. However, they've lost their rehearsal space at St James, they've lost their rehearsal space at the Old Magistrates Court over the last few years, and they are really struggling for rehearsal space. Would the Minister be prepared to enable some of the excellent school facilities, just mentioning Hope Valley as one, to be used and opened up in the evenings for Arts Centre rehearsals so that they can continue to do that good work?
Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you to the Deputy for alerting me to this. He mentioned it to me literally just this morning in the coffee room. I immediately sent an email to the department asking if we could look at this particular situation and see if we can help him. Thank you.
Deputy Hilton.
Thank you, sir. According to the mental health strategy produced by the Health Department, 1 in 10 children aged between 5 and 16 has a mental health problem. Is the Minister satisfied that there is enough support available in our primary and secondary schools to address this very important issue?
Thank you, sir, and thank you to the Deputy. I think the Deputy is probably aware that this is something that's very close to my heart with regard to mental health of children. And I attended a mental health conference in Manchester some weeks ago and was heartened to see that the very subjects that they were tackling were the ones that not only we were tackling, but we were somewhere ahead of the curve on in relationship to how our departments and how our psych ed team are actually dealing with it. So the education support team works with schools such as Mind, Jersey and the NSPCC. Extensive work is taking place across the island to enhance mental health and wellbeing services for young people aged 4 to 19 in our schools. The initiatives include new standards for school counsellors, training 100 school-based ELSAs, which means emotional literacy support assistants, and expanded training available for staff covering a range of topics in the mental health area. This is available to schools and covers areas such as resilience, self-harm, anxiety, and attachment. I can assure the Deputy it's very much on my agenda, and anything we can do to resolve any kind of issues that children have in this area, I will do it. Thank you.
Deputy Labby.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister recognised a cause for concern at Highlands College with low staff morale and a high staff turnover? And if so, how's he addressing this?
Yes, thank you, sir, and thank you to the Deputy. Yes, I am aware of the situation. It is a problem that the actual Chief Executive Officer is dealing with at the moment. I couldn't go into details, but I'm aware of the situation, and we are looking at it.
Thank you, sir. In his answer to question 8 earlier, written question, he states that ongoing assessment by teachers remains the main method of assessing how children are progressing. And he also referred to almost on a daily basis. Is he talking about the tick list approach to skills that is predominant in primary schools at the moment?
Thank you, sir. And I'm unaware of a tick list approach within primary schools. Our teachers within primary schools are highly trained individuals, very professional people, and are completely in tune with the children that they find under their care. No, it's not in relation to any kind of tick list. What it's in relation to was actually a direct quote from one of the heads that I spoke to in relation to this particular SATS test. And his answer was the children have responded to it very well. They, in fact, enjoyed the experience because it made them feel a little bit older. The desks were set up differently. Things had changed around in the rooms. But on a daily basis, and this was his point, on a daily basis, the teachers are simply aware of the situation of the children under their care and take notice on that. So this is the SATs that we do is just a very small part of that. But on a daily basis, the teachers are looking at their children constantly. Thank you.
Sir, if I may, the question was not about the SATs. It was about the assessments that teachers do on a daily basis, taking up hours and hours of assessment time. Does he really think that the ability to spot a determinant in a sentence or to spot the ability to use fronted adverbials is a useful skill either in his own experience or in the experience of teachers and pupils in primary school?
Thank you, sir. I think there is a bit of a dislocation. I just read a report just the other day that related to a review of what was being expected of primary schools, particularly when children make the transition from nursery through reception into primary school. And I'm very confident that the education that's provided within our primary schools is fantastic. And it isn't just all about tick box exercises and actually running children through particular exams or tests. It is simply observing children through play and making sure that that play is focused on their learning experience. Thank you.
If there's nobody else, sir, if I may, and does that not entail a massive recording of skills observed on the part of those teachers? Is it not taking up hours of administrative time?
No, sir, it's not.
Deputy Hilton.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister tell me whether any progress has been made with property holdings with a view of expanding the space available to Ridgebourne School by acquiring the now redundant police headquarters site? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think it's somewhere in my diary that I have a meeting set up with the Home Affairs Minister and I can't remember who else to actually talk about this particular situation because it was brought to my attention by Deputy Lewis and various other people, and particularly the Chair of Governors at Rouge Bouillon. So it is on our agenda, and we are hoping to meet to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for his extensive list.
Put your microphone on.
I thank the Minister for the extensive list of uses that the pupil premiums are put to. And I ask the Minister if he is convinced and certain that these schemes do not replace what should be the standard education grant going into the school. And I point to two in particular, which says Key Stage Leaders Project to focus on developing quality teaching and learning, which is aimed at the staff and not at individuals, which I thought was the purpose. 425 pupils, and a reading strategy for Key Stage 2 affecting 32 pupils. I would have thought everybody had a reading strategy, and that was part of normal education spend. Can the Minister assure us that the pupil premium are being well directed and not replacing funding that should have been more generally applied to schools?
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the Deputy for both asking the written question and this question. I mean, I think the written answer shows you the breadth and the scope and the creativity that is now being created by the notion of the Jersey Premium. I think it's been an outstanding project, and I hope to see, when we reach the end of this year in particular, some of the discovery stages where we can actually share with teachers some of the good practice that's being introduced. The idea of the Jersey Premium is that it's a targeted intervention, not necessarily just for the pupils, but the teachers within our four principals, or the heads, I should say, have been given the autonomy to look at the way that that funding is being spent and actually utilise it in any way that they think will advance the education within their schools. It's not to replace anything that would have previously been spent or covered by another budget. Thank you.
No further questions for the Minister. Deputy St John.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister to explain what the accountability model is for head teachers of primary schools? Because I've heard from some parents who have a particular concern with the way that a school is run or with the way their child is being treated. If they go to education, nothing is done about it. So could the Minister explain how the accountability structure works when there's no governing board in place?
Thank you, sir.
You have just a minute, Minister.
Okay, very quickly. I think if the Deputy has a particular aspect or a particular parent that they wish to pass on that information to me, that's fine, but there is a protocol whereby they contact the Chief Officer and it is taken up by him and then I'm advised of it.
Quick, Deputy Grivell.
Thank you, sir. Why are our exam results constantly compared to the UK? There is a new international table out, compiled by the OECD. It was published May 2017, where the UK rated 20 out of 76 countries. Should we not be raising our game a bit and comparing ourselves to these countries rather than constantly to the UK?
Very quickly, Minister.
Very quickly, I understand the tables the Deputy is referring to, the PISA tables. We do look at those. We don't measure ourselves against them because of the differences in locality and the size and the number of what we have here. The reason we do it with the UK is that we use GCSEs that are actually born from the UK. But we do look across the breadth. We don't just look at one particular place.
Okay, come to the second question here, which is for the Chief Minister. Deputy Hilton.
Thank you, sir. A couple of weeks ago, Andiam Homes held 2 open days, which attracted 600 islanders who are looking at ways of getting onto the affordable housing gateway. The Chief Minister has recently given support to the rezoning of Warwick Farm to provide homes, affordable homes for islanders. Can the Chief Minister tell members what discussions have taken place on the Council of Ministers in achieving the same? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. There's been no formal discussions. There's been informal discussions about the process that we would now need to go through to deliver those changes. And I understand that the Housing Minister either has or is due to have a conversation with the Planning Minister about the best approach to deal with that. It needs to be a joined-up approach because the site is under the auspices of Property Holdings. Andiam obviously wants to deliver housing to the policy of the Housing Minister, but the shareholder for Andiam is, of course, the Treasury Minister, and any planning permission or public inquiry has to be overseen and implemented by the Planning Department. I am really excited for those 600 families that went to the Andiam Open weekend. Their hope of actually owning a home and having a future here in Jersey, we now need to act upon. There'll be some difficult decisions about rezoning, but we should put the interests of the future generations to the fore. And that's what the Housing Minister, it's what Andiam are doing, and I think also it's what the Planning Minister will be doing as well.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister confirm that there are no restrictions on the victims of abuse that have received compensation from the states from speaking about their abuse to the media or to the public? And the reason I ask this question, I've been told by one victim that they were told by the state's lawyers that if they did so, they would have to pay back their compensation. So would the Chief Minister just make it absolutely clear once and for all, these people are not gagged? Thank you.
So that my understanding is the same understanding as the Deputy. I think that there was a request, and I'm not sure how it was put in the contract, not to talk about the quantum, because the quantum of monies received, everybody's case is different, and the technical reasons why you've reached one quantum rather than another is quite complex, but that did not and does not, and as far as I'm aware, does not gag anybody from talking to the public, talking in the public domain, talking to media about their own specific experience. And I think this ties in with what the Deputy was asking me earlier. It is these experiences that people are going to be asked about and talk about when the inquiry is published. And for my part, it is really important that they do, so that we as a community, having the report, having the recommendations, can then come together and be determined to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has boasted of a good financial year for 2016, and the Treasury Minister has quoted at length from accounting returns for the states. Can the Chief Minister assure the Assembly that the structural deficit forecast by the FPP and the Corporate Services Panel, advisors and the panel in 2014 has actually been dealt with forever?
So the Senator knows that accounts don't work like that. The Senator knows that what this government has done is put forward a plan to deliver a balanced budget over the period of the MTFP, and I reiterated last week or the week before words of the Treasury Minister in this Assembly that the budget was broadly balanced in 2016. And members will see the accounts, which will be published early in June. They will see the underspends of departments. And my message was this, sir. Income is improved. The Treasury Minister spoke earlier about the difficulties and the of forecasting income. In times of economic downturn, it's easy to overstate them because you can't be quite sure. When the economy is growing, it's easy to understate them. We put the best information that we had in 2013, we used the best information that we had in 2014, we used the best information that we had. We continue to do that, sir. So broadly balanced in 2016, income up, spending less than budgeted, but we must keep on track to ensure that 17 is balanced, that 18 is balanced, and that 19 is balanced as well, sir.
Supplementary, sir.
I'm sorry, Senator. I'll come back to you, but I've got a lot of people waiting.
That's a nice rhetorical triple there. Lovely. Does the Chief Minister agree with his Treasury and Resources Minister, notwithstanding his statement to come later, with the postponement of a decision on the funding of the hospital? And if so, what discussion took place at Council of Ministers, and whether there is some form of new package, either presented by TNR or by another person, to add to the options in front of us?
So often in this job, I find myself in a situation that I would rather not be in. But this Assembly calls upon me, it calls upon the Treasury Minister, it calls upon all ministers to make decisions based on where we are with the information that we have. And so members know that the proposal in November of 2016 was a specific proposal. This Assembly said that it didn't want the certainty of a locked-in rate for a long period of time. In January of this year, it wanted scrutiny to do its work. So scrutiny have done an excellent piece of work. They've had 2 advisors' reports. Those advisors' reports raise issues which I think this Assembly and the public want to be addressed. Because let's be clear, sir, members are divided on what the right approach for funding the hospital should be. The public are divided on what the right approach for funding the hospital to be. This is such a big, important infrastructure project that I am absolutely committed to delivering, because we need it for our future, that we should not be divided between ministers and scrutiny. We should work together to deliver the best solution for the hospital into the future. That Scrutiny Advisor's report said there were 3 risks. The hospital budget, i.e. that we hadn't come with a budget at the same time. It talked about the borrowing capacity, and it talked about arbitrage risks. We're getting quite technical, sir. Ministers are committed to borrowing, but we're not, sir, because building on the Scrutiny Advisor's report, the decision of the Treasury Minister is absolutely right to bring it back with the outline business case later in the year, which is what we were going to do, bring a business case for decision as well, sir. The Scrutiny Advisor's report, sir, suggests that this is the approach that we should take. And so rather than battling on, sir, in the difficult position that we found ourselves is, we want to work together with members, with the public as well, so that we can build consensus to get the best result for our community and deliver a hospital for the future.
Supplementary, if I may, sir.
You've answered 2. Excuse me, Sir Deputy. You've answered 2 of the questions, but I think you've not answered the middle question. Was it discussed with the Council of Ministers?
Oh, sir, I thought you were asking me to sit down and be quiet. Sir, I have had a number of conversations with Treasury and with individual ministers, and it was discussed with members of the Council of Ministers yesterday, sir, about the best approach to take with regard to continuing the debate today, or in effect taking the line of action that we're now taking.
And my own supplementary, sir, is there a fresh plan for funding the hospital on the cards?
The Chief Minister's answered that, Deputy. He said he's going to be working with the scrutiny panel and members to come forward later in the year. Deputy Taylor.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to give the Chief Minister one final chance ahead of the debate P25, which is to do with answering questions. Now that the review has been published about what happened with the Innovation Fund, will he clarify whether after the publication of the Comptroller and Auditor General's report, he asked either the Treasury Minister or the Economic Development Minister to resign?
No, I didn't, sir.
Deputy Approval.
So, can I ask a supplementary? Was that, no, I didn't ask them to resign, or no, I won't clarify?
Was it no, you didn't ask them to resign, or was it no, you won't clarify?
I said no, I didn't. It can only be the answer to the first question.
Yeah.
And so may I ask a supplementary?
No, you may not at the moment. We'll come back to you. The other members want you to ask questions. Deputy Approval.
What efforts are we making with our French cousins to encourage support through our historic relationships with Brittany and Normandy at this crucial post-departure time from the EU? They're surely in a good position to lobby French officials in Paris on issues that confront the Channel Islands.
So, of course, I congratulate the new President of the Republic on his stunning election success and his appointment of a government. The Deputy will know that one member of that government has strong links with Normandy, and we have strong not only historic and cultural links with Normandy, but ongoing links with Normandy. We have refreshed and renewed the Channel Islands French office. and they have a mandate to continue to build bridges and links with Paris. That happens not only in Normandy, in Paris, also in Brussels, through the ambassador in London as well. And all things being equal, sir, I will be in Paris on the 7th and 8th of June, continuing to build on those important links, because they will be, into the future, an important partner for us.
Deputy Labby.
So the chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny panel was vilified by the Council of Ministers when he went about his duties that this House has asked him to do and scrutinised the hospital funding. He was also vilified just recently by PPC, and he's doing their job for them as well over the last couple of weeks. Isn't he owed an apology?
So I said that I thought that the scrutiny panel, and particularly their advisors, had done an excellent job. This Assembly decided that they wanted them to do that job, and I congratulate them for the job that they've done. I think it would be wrong. Have we learnt nothing from the Innovation Fund review? It would be wrong for us to continue without taking proper consideration to what that advisor asked us to consider. That's what we're doing. We shouldn't get bogged down in personalities. I am sorry if the chairman himself has taken it personally. Hopefully things that happen in this Assembly aren't taken personally. But it's wrong for us to translate all issues into personality rather than policy. They did a good review. Their experts raised some issues, and I agree with the Treasury Minister that the approach that's now being proposed is the right way forward. I think that we will continue to borrow, but there are a number of technical issues, largely about when. That scrutiny review said you don't need the money until 19 or 20. You should stop and ask whether you want to take it now or later.
I'm sorry, but that's going outside the question. Deputy Lafondre.
Got about 3 questions generating, sir, but I'll stick to my original one.
You've got time for one.
Sir, the Chief Minister is quoted as saying that there had never been a black hole. On the basis that a black hole is a reference to a deficit over a number of years, could the Chief Minister clarify whether he's ever said there has never been a black hole, and if so, why?
Sir, I have been criticised over the last 10 days for saying we've got a balanced budget, and our plan to ensure that there isn't a deficit at 2019 is working. And people are saying to me, you said there was going to be a black hole, Chief Minister, and now there isn't a black hole. What's happened to it? I never said there was going to be a black hole. I said if you want to invest in health, if you want to invest in education, if you want to invest in infrastructure, and I do, then this is the plan that we need to follow to ensure that we have a balanced budget, sir. That is what we've done, that is what we're doing, and it's proving to be successful, sir.
Time is up, Chief Minister. That brings question time to an end. We have nothing under J. Statements on a matter of official responsibility. We received notice from the Treasury Minister that he wished to make a statement with regard to future hospital funding. It is being distributed at the moment. I'll just wait for it to be distributed. Treasury Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the Council of Ministers remains fully committed to the delivery of a modern new hospital to meet the needs of our community for the future. However, we have to get the timing and the level of borrowing right for this important project. So, following discussion with the Chief Minister and other members of the Council of Ministers, I have agreed to withdraw this proposition on the future hospital funding strategy until the autumn, when there should be greater certainty about key aspects of the project. I would like to stress that this should not disrupt progress on the delivery of the new hospital, as officers will continue with the preparation work necessary to keep the project on schedule. I know that many people are concerned about the cost of the hospital and about the level of borrowing that it may require. I remain convinced, based upon professional advice, that using a blend of borrowing and reserves is the right way to fund the hospital construction. Equally, I remain convinced that using solely the strategic reserve in these uncertain times is not the right solution. Indeed, we recently received a report from the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, commissioned by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. This report recognised the merits of combining borrowing with some reserves to fund the hospital. But it also suggested that we should wait until the project costs and the risks become clearer before deciding on the final funding blend. We have listened and have decided to wait until the autumn, when we will have a more detailed business case and an updated budget and greater clarity on the planning process. We will then be in a better position to make a final decision on the best way to optimise the blend of borrowing and reserves. I must be clear, as I have been before, that risks remain in delaying a decision on borrowing. However, there are also some advantages in having greater certainty on the project timing, budget and planning process. Members will be invited to debate the business case, updated budget and funding strategy together in the autumn. It is hoped that this coordinated approach will assist members in reaching an informed decision on what is the island's largest and most important capital project. Thank you.
Open questions for the Minister. Start with Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Given that it was a very late decision, would the Minister tell the Assembly who was involved with the decision, which ministers, which elected members of this Assembly, and any members of the public?
Sir, I regret, as I mentioned to members in my email late yesterday, that the decision was late and that I had to inform members late of the decision for this withdrawal. With regard to who was responsible, ultimately the proposition is lodged in the name of the Minister for Treasury and Resources, so it is my responsibility with regard to withdrawing the proposition. That decision was taken after discussions, as I said in my opening comments, with the Chief Minister and members of the Council of Ministers who had some concerns over certain aspects, as indeed members have over time, and indeed members of the community as a whole. This is a highly emotive subject, it's a complex matter, and it is important, as far as I am concerned, that there is absolute support with the decision and the proposal that is put forward, and that as many members of this Assembly are also included in that process, which of course is why scrutiny has had such an important role to play.
Supplementary, sir, that was no answer to the question which I asked. Given that this is a very important decision, who was involved with the decision?
So with the greatest respect to the Senator, I did feel I answered the question. Ultimately, the decision to withdraw is mine as I lodged the proposition, but it was taken in consultation with the Chief Minister and members of the Council of Ministers, and that decision was taken late, as I've stated, and it was taken yesterday, and members were informed as soon after as possible.
Deputy Hilton.
Thank you, sir. The Minister states in what he's just actually read to us. We have listened and decided to wait until the autumn. Can the Minister confirm whether the decision to postpone this was based entirely on the report that the scrutiny panel commissioned when looking at the financing of the hospital? Was that the only reason?
Of course, there is more than one report that the scrutiny panel have commissioned, and one of those reports, produced by CIPFA, which I quoted in my statement, was a contributory factor to the decision, but of course it wasn't the only factor in the decision.
Supplementary, sir. There were other factors. Would the Minister like to tell members what those other factors were?
Yes, sir. I covered them largely in my statement earlier. They concerned issues around uncertainty, which was, of course, captured by the comments made by the CIPFA report with regard to costs, timing, and, of course, the planning process. Those are the headings and areas where we feel that more clarity is needed, and that will become apparent in the coming months, and autumn would give us the position where we'll have an updated budget, greater clarity over the planning process, and timings as well, which is obviously important in the decision of the blend of the funding options.
Deputy Sir John.
Thank you, sir. The Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel released their report over 5 weeks ago, and it took until 7:10 last night to receive an email to advise that it's being withdrawn. Can the Minister explain why this wasn't actually discussed at a Council of Ministers meeting with all ministers involved, and for an appropriate decision to be made there and not on the hoof by a few members of the Council of Ministers or backbenchers?
So I can be absolutely clear. It wasn't a question of making a decision on the hoof. It was a question that there have been some concerns raised over many, many months by members of this Assembly, by scrutiny, by members of the public. And indeed, there were members of the Council of Ministers also who had concerns over that period of time. It was right on Monday, yesterday, that the Chief Minister and I discussed the issue and indeed had a further discussion with members. And in fact, the CIPFA report came out about 3 weeks ago when it was published. And as I've said, that was just part of the decision-making process, not all the process.
Deputy Labby.
So the word described attributed to ministers in this minister's position by the press in situations like this is very often embattled. I wonder how long does he feel he can endure matters proceeding in the way that they have recently?
So many ministers from time to time are embattled, as the Deputy said. We have a job to do, and we get on and we do it to the best of our abilities. The important thing is to serve islanders and to serve this island in the way that we believe is most appropriate and is most appropriate for the office in which we hold. I have said during my statement that I believe that the Treasury Department, the Treasurer, and our professional advisors have done a splendid job in pulling together what I believe is a solution for the funding of our hospital. I have no doubt that the hospital will be funded. I have no doubt, as members here are absolutely convinced, that there is a need for a hospital. And as such, we have a job of work to do, and I intend to see it through to ensure that we get that project, one of the most important capital projects this island will have ever faced, off the ground and secure for the future.
Conatell St John.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm or deny that he has received unsolicited external advice?
I'm not quite sure what the Constable means by that. I can say or answer if there is a question of are there other opinions as to how the hospital may be funded. There are lots of opinions as to how the hospital could be funded. Some have come directly to me, others have come indirectly to me. As far as I'm concerned, like any minister, I make a decision based on professional advice. So any information that comes to me about proposed ways to fund the hospital gets directed to my officers and my advisors to go through a proper process of assessing that option, and that's the way in which it should be done and is done.
Supplementary, sir.
I'll come back to you. There are numbers of members wanting to ask questions. Get your question in first, as you wanted answered. Deputy of St Warren.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister accept that scrutiny should be offered the opportunity of reviewing the business case that will be brought forward? So in his statement, the Minister has spoken about an autumn debate. Can he tell us precisely the timeline that he envisages once the business case has been produced, allowing time, I hope, for scrutiny? And was this at all discussed with the scrutiny department?
So with regard to the business case, and indeed the further information to which I've alluded to in the statement, which I think is going to improve the decision-making ability for members, yes, the business case will go to scrutiny. Scrutiny should, of course, have a look at the business case, and by the autumn, it will be in a position where it is much more worked up and effective than would have been the case in its current form. With regard to the timeline, I would come back to the Deputy, if I may, with regard to that. We've used the term autumn. There are a number of moving parts in this, and I would like to clarify with others that are involved in this process exactly what that timing would look like.
Deputy Taddy.
Thank you, sir. It was only on the 18th of April that the Minister stood in this Assembly and, to quote Hansard, said, "I think a 2-week delay is reasonable. To leave it any longer than that is just increasing the risk and the uncertainty. This is a project we need to get on with. We need to make a decision." Now we're in the Assembly 5 weeks on, so not only is the 2 weeks long past, but a further delay is being proposed by him. Why the U-turn? Sir, since January, in fact, I can go back even further. I've stood in this Assembly talking about the risks of not proceeding with this particular funding strategy. The Deputy is right. April, I repeated that, and I also repeated the risks. And, sir, the statement that I've just given also referred to the risks of delay with regard to borrowing. The borrowing rates, actually, the bond rates have gone up and down in the intervening period. In fact, back in January, they're at 2.6, I think it was. They dropped down to about 2.43. They're currently, as of last Friday, at 2.57. They're all over the place, as members will not be surprised to hear. My position has not changed. There is risk in delaying with regard to borrowing, but there are also advantages, as I've said in my statement, in waiting to make sure that we have more information, and importantly, sir, that members have more information about costs, about timing, about the planning process, areas that are important for the decision-making process to be as effective as possible.
Deputy Vondry.
Thank you, sir. The Minister's just said that his position has not changed, which means I assume he's not changed his mind about the funding strategy for the hospital. If he could confirm that is the case, in which case, if he has not changed his mind on the funding strategy, who actually first raised the suggestion of cancelling this debate, sir?
The Deputy is right. I haven't changed my mind because my mind was made up based on professional advice. As I've already said, the Treasurer, the Treasury Department have done an excellent job together with external advisors in putting together a strategy which is a blended strategy for funding the hospital, which I've talked about on numerous occasions in public. I believe that is the right decision. I therefore would say to the Deputy, with regard to the delay in this particular proposition, or withdrawal, I should say, to be represented in the autumn, it is important that all ministers are supportive as we move forward, and that all members are supportive, and indeed that scrutiny have had their opportunity to have done the review that they've now undertaken, which incidentally I think is an excellent review in terms of what's been produced. We need to take people with us on this journey for the largest capital project that this island will have ever committed itself to.
Sir, just to pick up my question, which was who first raised the suggestion to cancel this debate?
That was discussed, as I've mentioned several times, amongst ministers. I don't wish to go into naming individuals, but there are some ministers who have concerns about certain elements, as indeed there are members of this Assembly who have concerns, and members of the community at large. We have to ensure that we take people with us.
I'll just confirm it was not the Treasury Minister, sir.
So the Treasury Minister, I think, has made it clear that he supports the funding proposal that has been presented. It is a funding proposal, as I've said several times, that was based on professional advice, and I think that's the right decision. There are some advantages in delaying this debate or withdrawing it and representing it in the autumn, which will allow greater clarity in the areas that I've already mentioned.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. For the avoidance of doubt and clarity, will the Minister name those who were involved yesterday in the decision to withdraw the proposition today? Senator Ferguson asked you, you avoided it. Just tell us exactly which ministers were involved in the decision and others.
Sir, I didn't ignore it at all. I said, and I take the responsibility as the minister who lodged this proposition, it is only for I to withdraw it, and therefore I did that based on consultation with the Chief Minister and members of the Council of Ministers. Which members? So I'm not prepared to go into details any further than what I've already said.
How many ministers in that case?
Thank you, sir. I'm very disappointed with this statement because, in my opinion, it tells us nothing. I've used not a red pen, but an exercise to cross out all of these paragraphs which tell us nothing. The only thing I can find in here is that the minister tells us that the timing is not right. The timing is not right for the decision to be made. Will he tell us orally what he is not telling us in this written statement?
Sir, I'm not entirely clear on the question. I hoped, sir, that my statement was clear. I hope that the questions I've since answered, which have elaborated on that, around the rationale for delay to give greater clarity around the issues of costs and timing and the planning process, are absolutely clear. And those are points picked up by the CIPFA experts who were employed and contracted by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I think that's clear, sir, hopefully.
Deputy Hilton.
I'll pass, sir. Thank you.
Conor Talbot St John.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister apologise to the owners of the properties that are subject to purchase in order to make way for the new hospital for the uncertainty and lack of clarity that this has caused?
Sir, I am assured that there are no delays currently envisaged with the project, including those matters to which the Constable has just alluded to.
Deputy St John. Last question.
Thank you, sir. The present funding for the preparatory work involved in the Future Hospital project was voted by this Assembly a long time ago, and I believe even the previous MTFP. From my scrutiny work, I know that it was always imagined that further necessary funding would be available by now during the process. So how is the Future Hospital project to be funded in this interim period before this debate, which the Minister says might take place in the autumn? Will the Minister share the details of where the funding is coming from, or how the present amounts that have been voted will be eked out? And how is it anticipated
That's quite enough, Deputy.
Thank you, sir.
We're already
Thank
you, sir. Yes, I can give some information on that. The budget that was allocated was just short of £33 million. There is approximately £17 million in round numbers left available for the project team. And indeed, as I've already said, I have been assured that there is no delays envisaged with the project of progressing the hospital project by this delay until the autumn. In fact, I'm advised that funding is available up until the end of the year. But further clarity on that has been sought to make sure that nothing is being missed. And I will update members if there is anything that I'm advised that is contrary to that comment at a later date.
That brings questions on the Minister's statement to an end. I give notice that the Privileges and Procedures Committee has lodged draft amendment number 31 of the Standing Orders of the States of Jersey, P43.
Sir, may I raise the defo on Deputy Doublé?
First, the defo will be raised on Deputy Doublé. That's great. The defo is raised. We now come to public business. I understand you wish to withdraw the hospital funding debate, Minister, but do you also wish to withdraw for the time being the draft public finances amendment?
Yes, sir, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we now come to P12, parish rates payment by the States of Jersey. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Treasury and Resources to consult on and bring forward for debate proposals for the payment of parish rates by the States in 2018.
Conor Talbot.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure the Minister of Treasury and Resources will be pleased to receive probably what will be the only pat on the back he gets today from me for his comment on the proposition and indeed his willingness to accept the proposition, which would hopefully mean we don't have to have a long debate about it. Just to remind members that who are not been in the States as long as I have, that the States have been pondering the issue of paying rates on their properties for at least 20 years. They've debated the matter numerous times. Successive chief ministers and before them presidents of Policy and Resources and presidents of the Finance Committee have brought forward proposals to pay rates which, if they'd been accepted back in the early years of this millennium, would have meant that all the parishes were receiving some proceeds, and all ratepayers around the island would be seeing a reduction in their rates if that's how they chose to reflect the extra quarters paid into their rates income. However, we are where we are, as one chief minister famously said, and we have now agreed as an assembly to bring in the payment of rates on states' properties. And we've agreed that on numerous occasions, but most recently as part of the strategic plan and the medium-term financial plan. So that decision has been made. What we failed to do on the 14th of December, and I've suggested members whose memories are rusty look back at that debate on Hansard, we actually failed to agree the payment to the parishes, although somewhat bizarrely we agreed the more difficult part of the finance debate, which was how the money would be raised. That always in the past, of course, had been the problem that stopped this matter going through. But back in December, we approved the mechanism, but we then refused that the money allocated to the relevant budget should actually be passed over to the parishes. So I'm simply asking members to agree that, as the Treasury Minister has agreed to do, that he consults, clearly most importantly with the constables, on this matter of paying rates, and we allow him to bring forward his plans to do that in early course, so that all parishes can benefit from a reduction in their rates, which they, at annual parish assemblies, will choose to spend either on improving services to parishioners or in reducing the rates. And I commend the proposition to the States.
Proposition seconded. Does any member wish to speak?
Just a quick one.
Well, you're just a little bit behind the Conotable of St John. Conotable of St John.
Thank you, sir. This is, as the Constable of St Helier has pointed out, been debated many times. And I feel that I would just like to reaffirm my position, and I know the position of my parish. We're not against the states paying rates, but I am vehemently against anything that may increase the rates to my parish. As many people know, previously the rates in the country parishes were substantially increased, and I write out a cheque every year. Last year it was £320,000, or 44% of my parish rate, handed over to the states for welfare. This was a cheque that we never had to pay before, and it was one that was brought about to reduce the welfare burden on St Helier. And so any mechanism that will increase the burden on the parish of St John's, I will vehemently oppose. Thank you, sir.
Much on the same lines as my colleague, the Connétable of St John, my question is, where are the funds coming from? I agree entirely with everything that the Connétable has said, and I just say, well, it's fine to say let's pay the rates, but what is the funding stream?
Thank you, sir. So there is been a number of remarks made in recent days about manifestos and manifestos commitment, and a number of this assembly members of this assembly got elected on the basis of doing exactly what the Constable of St Helier has said, which was a fairer deal for St Helier. The Constable of St John may lament writing a cheque for welfare, but he said, St Helier, sir. If I may remind the Constable, who was not in the Assembly at the time, there was a huge unfairness amongst the populous parishes of St Saviour, St Helier and St Clement in relation to the welfare costs, which were always, as far as natives, we even had a description of non-natives and non-natives, where the bill would be sent to the centre for non-natives, people who had lived, from my memory, less than 5 years, and those over 5 years. The Conservative government proposal manifesto has been criticised because of an ageing society, and the cheque that he writes to the centre is a far lesser cheque than ratepayers of all parishes would have made if we would not have dealt with fairness in relation to the welfare burden. Welfare includes residential costs. It includes a number of issues. And the deal that was arrived at a number of years ago, which was to end the unfairness because of where social housing and where there were the situate of a number of the then housing committee properties and a number of other things, meant that some parishes, and especially St Helier, was most egregiously unfairly dealt with. There was a long-term plan to have fairness with the parishes. And fairness means that there is also an unfair distribution or an unequal distribution of state's properties in different parishes, of which St Saviour has the majority of the schools and St Helier has the majority of state's officers. This is one of fairness. And it is the end, one of the final aspects of what was originally the States Parish Working Party, to plan for the future, as this Assembly, unlike other governments, haven't done, which is basically sorting out the ageing society, dealing with domiciliary care, putting a long-term care proposal in for funding, all the good work from the Social Security Minister, etc. There are advantages and disadvantages in many aspects. Some people lament the moving and centralisation of welfare. Of course, there was a disadvantage, perhaps, with not a parish connection. On the other side of it, there was fairness, with a greater number of working families getting welfare entitlements that they actually did. There was a massive transfer payment from central revenues into people who were not getting help that they needed. Now, there is one aspect which the Constable is addressing in this proposition, which is about the unfairness of the distribution of state's property. It cannot be right to ask the people of St Helier to take more and to be the commercial, to be the centre of residency, the centre of the economy, the centre of our tourism industry to a large extent, and effectively to have nothing in relation to the costs incurred in having state's properties in their parishes. And this is why it is the right thing to do. And it's been a long time coming. It's taken too long. There is a proposal to deal with how to pay for it. I'm not going to speak about that because members know about it. There is also unfairness at the moment in relation to the rating system. If some parishes don't want to do it, perhaps they shouldn't have to do it. But the fact is that the commercial rate has become unfair because of the changing in rental costs. Offices are not paying enough, retail premises are paying too much, hotels are paying too much, and there needs to be a reorganisation. The Constable of St Helier is to be congratulated for his persistence and his long-term service to the parishioners of St Helier, who he is responsible for, to ensure that there is fairness. It's a lot fairer than it used to be, if I may say, compared to 15, 20 years ago, but it's not fair, and we shouldn't deal with this. And I don't think the Constable of St Helier should be criticised. He's been a constable who has accepted the fact that there should be more accommodation in St Helier, there should be a growing economy, there should be a vibrant St Helier, but with those responsibilities comes costs, and this is one way of defraying them. And I enthusiastically, wholly, supportively, and I think a majority of people that I spoke to at election time actually, when they saw the facts, knew that this was unfair and it should be dealt with, and it's got to be dealt with, and this is the proposition that deals with it. And I congratulate both the Treasury Minister for accepting it in his remarks and his comments, and the Constable for bringing it forward. It's absolutely the right thing to do.
Thank you, sir. I think I've been in the Assembly 9 years, and I don't think I've ever agreed more with Senator Ossoff. I would also like to say that it is a question of fairness, and it is right that St Helier should be able to receive rates money from states buildings, as does St Saviour with the bulk of the schools they've got. The only thing I've really wanted to say was that I'd also like to thank the Treasury Minister as well for his comments paper, that he's still going to come forward with it. The only thing is I find fault with the very last paragraph, because it's a danger of the matter never coming back. Because we know that some of the country parishes are vehemently opposed to anything to come to raise money for St Helier or even St Saviour if it means they'll pay any more. And the Minister said in his final paragraph, the Minister will not bring further legislative changes to the Assembly without sharing the draft wording of the legislative changes with the constables, making changes to the draft wording as appropriate following that consultation process which is underway. The truth of the matter is, you may never ever get agreement on what the final thing would be, and therefore you won't be able to bring it back in 2018. So I hope that the Treasury Minister will allay my fears and will bring back something to the House in 2017 so we can actually again have a debate on it and the public can actually see where the problems lie. Thank you.
Treasury Minister.
Thank you, sir. As I've said in my written comments, I do support the Constable's proposition, which asks me to consult on and bring forward for debate proposals for the payment of parish rates by the states in 2018. The reason for my support, sir, is that I have already started the process of consulting with colleagues in this Assembly, in particular my friends the Connotabs. There is much more consultation to be undertaken. We have had a meeting, and I've had independent discussions with one or two others, but there is much, much more to do. Whilst I can't guarantee that all the practical issues will be resolved in time for the states to pay rates in 2018, that is the timetable that I have asked officers in my department to work towards. So, although this Assembly rejected detailed proposals to give effect to the payment of rates last December, it has been very clear in giving a mandate to progress the matter. An amendment in the strategic plan was approved, and the medium-term financial plan was approved as well, including the payment of rates. The reissued budget statement 2017, following the debate in December, stated, and I'll quote if I may, further work will now be required with the constables during 2017 to agree how to progress the payment of funding of the state's payment of parish rates. So I can give an undertaking to this Assembly that I will not bring further legislative changes to this Assembly without sharing the draft wording of those changes with the constables. And I will make changes to the draft wording as appropriate following that consultation process. I would not be being entirely truthful, sir, if I gave the impression that there were not issues to resolve with my colleagues, including the constables. However, there are barriers to overcome rather than reasons for not proceeding with this Assembly's instructions. So I look forward to bringing more detailed proposals to this Assembly regarding this matter in due course. Thank you.
Dr. Lefondre.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I've always had a very simple perspective on this. I've always supported the states paying rates. I make one plea, which was, I think, in the last proposals in December, I guess, it was going to be recycled, for want of a better expression, against other charges. So essentially, we were putting up taxes for the state on other, we were moving charges onto other people to mitigate this, the impact on the states, which I didn't think that was right. And I think that's why it was rejected then. So my plea is keep it simple. That's the principle. The states should be paying rates. And one of the reasons I've always been very keen on it is that actually in certain instances the states do act in competition to the private sector, but it doesn't always show or share the same costs, and this is one of them. And therefore, sometimes you get these stories, oh, we can do it cheaper or whatever it is, but actually there's this kind of hidden subsidy going into states' activities versus what the private sector is doing. What I also will recollect, and I wouldn't like to guarantee, but I think my memory is accurate, because I was chairman of a working party on the rates when I was in Treasury some many years ago, somewhere around 2006, 2007, and my recollection is that the recommendation of that working party was not only that states should pay rates, but taxes should not be increased to compensate for that. And so that's my one plea to the parties involved. Very much support where we're going, but it shouldn't be by increasing taxes to compensate for it.
The Connotab St John.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly, the committee, the Connotab, certainly look forward to further consultation with the Treasury Minister and hope that at the end of the day the proposition that comes forward will be much more sensible and, as Deputy Lafondre said, straightforward than the one that came up in the budget. And I would say to Deputy Higgins to console him, the report, the comments of the Treasury Minister do not say to obtain the agreement of the Connotabs, but simply to share his thoughts with us. And but we look forward to that. Now, certainly, over the last few years, the majority of the Connotab have been opposed to the proposition of the states paying rates on the way that they've been proposed in the past. And there are many reasons for that. One of them, perhaps, is that, as the Constable St Helier said in his opening comments, if the states were paying rates, the ratepayers would be paying less in rates. Now, basically, that's true. But then someone has got to pay for that. So in this case, we talk about the states paying rates. It's not the states paying rates, is it really? It's the taxpayer paying rates. So if the ratepayer gets a discount, gets a reduction in the rate, it's the taxpayer who picks up the bill and who has to pay more in tax or get less services. So really, it's just under the proposals we've had in the past, it's just been a game of money go round. And the Constable also said that we've agreed the funding mechanism. I don't think that's true. I mean, I don't recall having agreed a funding mechanism. I know some money's been put in the budgets of the various departments, but I don't think a mechanism has been agreed. In fact, what was an open secret was that what the Treasury were hoping to do was to pay for the rates that they had to pay through an increase in the island-wide rate. So once again, you'd have this situation where the rates would go down for the ratepayer in one hand, good news, but then the island-wide rate would go up. So, so it's the same amount of money being paid for by the same people, but a good bookkeeping exercise going on at the Treasury. And we just need to bear that in mind, and that's why the consultation is so important. And so I think it's to remember, it's not so much, I repeat again, it's not so much the states having to pay rates, but the taxpayer having to pay rates. We need to be very careful and get this right and get it simple. Thank you, sir.
Any other member wish to speak? I'll call on the Connotab to reply.
Thank you, sir. It's one of the shortest debates we've had on the subject of the states paying rates. And I thank everyone who spoke. The Constable of St John, as he says, hasn't been doing this as long as I have. So when he refers to the welfare burden falling upon St Helier, he's of course not entirely correct. All of the urban parishes, particularly St Helier, but also St Saviour, St Clement, St Brelade, had large welfare bills, which is why it was so important that we brought in a system that didn't simply load welfare payments on those who happen to live in certain parishes. And that was the income support scheme that has now been in for some years and is being constantly worked at, not only by the Minister, but of course by her friends on scrutiny. But the welfare burden had to be made fair. It was made fair. And the fact that St John residents contribute more to the welfare of islanders is a matter of fairness. And I hope that he doesn't really have a problem with that. Of course, it's right that every parish fights their own corner, every constable has a certain parochial view of things, but we're also in the States Assembly to represent the island, not just our parishes. Senator Ferguson asked where the funds would be coming from. That was a matter that other members returned to. Senator Ferguson was one of those who caused this to be lost in December last year. It was lost by 3 votes. I perhaps should spare the blushes of some members, but there is a certain parish not that far from here whose ratepayers would have been £156,000 better off in the July Assembly, who actually have denied their ratepayers that income. Senator Ferguson, as a senator, represents St Helier, and I would ask her to be mindful of the needs of this parish and indeed the other urban parishes as she approaches next year's elections. Senator Ossoff, I thought, made a very good speech in which he reminded members that it is about fairness, but it's also about a better use of property. And one of the concerns that people had in the early years of the millennium when they looked at the issue of rates was that the states had this huge property portfolio we don't need to go through them, we'll be here till this evening, of properties sitting empty and nothing happening to them. If the states had to pay rates on their vacant properties, then they might be in a bit more of a hurry to make better use of their property portfolio. The other example, which I've used before, and it's just across the road from here, is Moria House. If anyone doubts the unfairness of a parish with lots of public buildings not receiving rates on them, they only have to look at Moria House, which when it was a bank, paid rates to the parish of St Helier. And when it became a government department, it stopped doing so. And that cannot be right. Senator Ossoff also spoke about the quid pro quo, which is my phrase for the fact that this parish in particular has agreed to accept the bulk of development, the bulk of housing. It has to have the bulk of the traffic. He calls it a centre of tourism, which I think is excellent. But there has to be a quid pro quo, and that is that if St Helier's position is unfair, as it was agreed to be back in that report he referred to, which was actually published in the year 2000, the relationship of the parishes and the states, then surely we must get that right. If St Helier is to take the majority of development, it must be treated fairly by government. I'd like to thank Deputy Higgins for seconding the proposition. As he says, it's not just about St Helier, it's about other parishes like St Saviour. I'm sorry, I've gone and let it slip, about the 156,000. But that's a matter for the Constable and her parishioners in July. I'm grateful to the Treasury Minister for his support. I'm pleased to hear that his officers have the process underway, because there is a lot of work to do if these cheques are to be handed over next year. I'm pleased that he referred to the revised budget statement, which of course reinforced his commitment to it. And that's why I think he's a good fellow, even today, on this difficult day. Deputy Le Fondre, again showing his age, he was indeed in a working party which recommended the payment of rates by the states back in 2007, I think it was. And the then Chief Minister, Terry LeSueur, Senator LeSueur, came to the states and said, yes, we'll pay rates next year. I think it was 2008. That's 10 years ago. And he said, we'll pay rates, but we're going to take it back from ratepayers with the other hand. At which point I pulled my proposition and it went no further. What we have had, I think, now established, and Deputy Le Fondre requests this, is a clear indication that the money will not simply be taken from the parishes and given back to the parishes with the other hand. That simply wouldn't be right. Finally, Constable St Clement voiced his concerns about how it will be funded. He said that I'd been incorrect in informing the Assembly that the funding mechanism had been approved, and I would draw members' attention to my report, where I refer to the amendment that did get through last December, the draft Finance 2017 Budget Jersey Law, Article 16, providing the mechanism for a revaluation of rateable values, and therefore the prospect of a financially sustainable approach to the states paying rates. That was an important decision, because revaluing rates does in particular mean that the large commercial premises that Senator Ossoff referred to and has referred to in the past will pay more of their share. The current problem is that we have a large financial services industry in premium, in grade A properties on the waterfront in particular, who admit themselves they're paying far less than they would expect to pay in any other jurisdiction in terms of commercial rates. When they pay more, we will see the smaller retailer, the smaller restaurants paying less. And that's why the revaluation was approved. That's why, in spite of the disappointment of December the 14th, it was actually a red letter day, because we approved the mechanism that will allow rates to be paid. So I do hope that with that, the Constable of St Clement will give his support to this proposition, and that we can allow the Treasury Minister to get on with his work and leave the Chamber today with a lighter heart than he came in with. Thank you. So I maintain the proposition.
All those in favour of adopting Capel's call for, invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on the proposition of the Conotub of St Helier, and ask the greffier to open the voting. If all members have had the opportunity of voting, ask the greffier to close the voting and announce that the proposition has been carried. 38 votes in favour, 2 votes against.
To contrary, Colin Talbot Trinity and Deputy Kevin Lewis.
We now come to the debate on P21, Jersey Sport Establishment, lodged by the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they have opinion to refer to their act dated 1st February 2011, in which they approved shadow boards and ministerial boards approval by the States, P170-2010, and to approve the establishment of Jersey Sport as an independent grant-funded body by means of a purpose trust named the Jersey Sport Development Trust, holding shares in Jersey Sport Limited, a company limited by shares in accordance with the attached Articles of Association.
Would you like your Assistant Minister to propose this, Minister?
Yes, please, sir.
Colin Thompson Brellard.
Sir, I'll just ask if I could just maybe add to your comments this morning, just as Assistant Minister in the department responsible for sport and culture. So I was horrified and disgusted that yet again an entertainment venue used for both sport and culture was targeted for a terrorist attack. It was a soft target, seems to have included children out for a fun evening watching a concert. I think we all should be able to go watch a sporting event, or in this case a pop concert, without the risk of being killed or maimed. It brought tears to my eyes this morning, and with a very simple question, why? And I'll move on to the proposition. This debate is first and foremost about whether putting sport at arm's length from government is the right thing to do, and I'm sure that it is. If the states agree with me, we should then consider a second question. Are we doing it the right way? And I'm convinced that we are. Members may already be quite familiar with the Jersey Sport concept. If so, that's perhaps a reflection on just how much of the development of this proposal has taken place in the public domain. The concept has been the subject of extensive public consultation, open stakeholder discussions and published reports since February 2013, when the then Education, Sport and Culture Department published its Sports Strategy Green Paper. The initial Green Paper generated more than 500 responses. It had identified clear support for changing how sport was organised in Jersey, creating a new independent body to oversee sport, and providing a new and dedicated voice for the sporting community. A 5-year sports strategy, Fit for the Future, was openly published and implemented off the back of that Green Paper. The strategy which took us through to the notably successful 2015 NatWest Island Games and beyond, specifically called for the creation of a new independent, grant-funded sports body. That strategy really is the genesis of Jersey Sport. While Fit for the Future outlined in clear terms what was needed, we still needed to flesh out the model and explain how it could be delivered. Again, the outcome of that work was openly published, as was the ministerial decision to endorse the approach. A specialist sports consultancy, Knight Kavanagh Page, was commissioned by Education, Sport and Culture. They consulted the Jersey sports community, states members and departments. It verified the outcomes of the Green Paper consultation and confirmed the extent of support within the sporting community, and it outlined the way forward with 17 conclusions and clear recommendations. Again, this report was openly published and it remains available on the government website. In December 2015, and following the endorsement of the KKP report, a shadow board was established and recruited under the supervision of the Appointments Commission. It began work on developing and consulting on the scope of the organisation and the best structure to ensure its independence from government. The Shadow Board published its sports report in September 2016, recommending that the new organisation be established as a company limited by shares, operating under a special purpose, non-charitable trust. On the 23rd of September 2016, as Assistant Minister with responsibility for sport, I authorised officers to undertake the measures necessary to establish the corporate structure of Jersey Sport Limited. A transition director was appointed subsequently, and he has successfully progressed plans to a stage whereby, if the state decides to approve its establishment today, the organisation can become operational within a matter of weeks. In January 2017, the necessary shell organisations were formed. These are not yet operational and will not become so unless the state approves this proposition today. An internal review of the Jersey Sport project was undertaken in January 2017. The decision of the states in respect of P170-2010 was considered as part of this review, and I was advised for the first time that the Jersey Sport model fell within the scope of the P170 decision. On that basis, I decided to seek the formal approval of the States Assembly for the establishment of Jersey Sport Limited. This proposition was duly lodged in March of this year, and it's the approval of that I'm asking some members for support today. So what is Jersey Sport? Accepting that the model has been talked about quite widely in the sporting community, I should briefly revisit, for the benefit of members, what Jersey Sport is designed to do. Jersey Sport will be an external body with the freedom to become the voice in the island for sporting interests and sports development. It will be guided by a robust, tightly defined partnership agreement, closely allied to the staged release of funding throughout any given year. As the accompanying report to this proposition explains, Jersey Sport will, amongst other things, look to further enhance the good reputation of sport in Jersey, share best practice knowledge and insights locally and from abroad, bring sports development under one roof, access charitable and other sports funding not available quite often to the states, introduce an entrepreneurial approach to the business of sport, and enable Jersey to be world-class at physical literacy, and so much more. For those that may not be familiar with the term physical literacy, it's the motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility for engagement in physical activities for life. And it's for everyone. It's not just for children, it's for adults, it's for everybody in our society. Jersey Sport will be a company limited by shares, operating under a purpose non-charitable trust, which under Jersey law is not owned either by the states or any other third-party body. One of these purposes is the setting up of the operating company, Jersey Sport Limited. Its board and executive, the government arrangements, plus establishing the areas of focus for delivery using grant funding to be provided by the EDTSC department. The Trust provides Jersey Sport with the high degree of independence that the sporting community has been asking for, whilst at the same time providing a mechanism for the department to ensure that its activities are suitably aligned with government policy. This structure is not dissimilar to that of other bodies established by the states in recent years, such as Visit Jersey and Jersey Business. The trustees in the structure have either a close involvement or interest in sport. They are determined to get proactively involved in the supervision of both the company and its board, and they will meet regularly with the board of Jersey Sport Limited to obtain feedback on the organisation's performance and ensure that the company is complying with its obligations. Where there are proposals to vary or add to the purposes or direction of the company, the trustees can discuss these with the board and provide directions as and when appropriate. If agreement cannot be reached, matters can be referred to an enforcer who will ensure that the company's operations remain compliant with state's policy and funding objectives. I suspect that many of the existing Shadow Board members will be known to states members, but for reference, biographies are included in the report that accompanies this proposition. The intention is for those Shadow Board members to become the substantive board, albeit supplemented by a small number of additional appointees. They are all passionate about sport and have extensive long-term connections with local sports clubs, associations and organisations. Their experience, knowledge and professionalism, allied to close involvement with the Jersey sporting community, makes them the ideal candidates to get Jersey Sport off the ground and adopting the leadership role it is intended to undertake. That expertise is evidenced, in my view, by the quality of the sport report that they produced last year. I am pleased to confirm that all the Shadow Board members have expressed their wish to continue their involvement with Jersey Sport, and that their Appointments Commission has given written confirmation that a smooth transition from Shadow to full board membership can take place. One of the fundamental wishes of the current Shadow Board members is that the Shadow Sport Board should remain non-remunerated. I'm pursuing an amendment to the original Articles of Association to achieve that change. I'm delighted to be doing so, not least because it shows that the long-established tradition of honorary or voluntary service in the island is alive and well. Indeed, it reflects the approach across the sporting community as a whole, which keeps achieving local and international success as a direct consequence of the effort of an army of hundreds of volunteers who give freely of their time. Jersey Sport will have the benefit of the majority of staff transferring from the existing sports development team. All have been given the option of transferring to the new body. Unions have been consulted, and I understand that staff have benefited significantly from constructive union engagement. States pensions advisors have also been on hand to provide advice. Appropriate new terms and conditions are in place, the terms of the transfer having been the first case reviewed by the newly created SEB subgroup, established in accordance with Deputy Southern's P63 2016. That subgroup has been chaired by the Constable Constable Samari, and I thank her for chairing that group. A small number of staff have decided not to transition, and recognising their personal decisions, I would sincerely like to thank them for their valued input and wish them the very best for the future. I'm pleased to report, however, that most staff are taking up the option of transferring to Jersey Sport, and I should like to thank them for their support and positive engagement with State's HR, officers of the department and the Jersey Sport Shadow Board. I'd also like to thank them for their patience. This process has taken longer than envisaged to get to this stage, but staff have maintained their high-quality professional service in the interim. It is this professionalism that gives me a strong sense of reassurance that Jersey Sport will inherit a team with a track record of delivery and the motivation to make Jersey Sport a real success. Those transitioning staff need the right leader to rally around. The recruitment process for the Chief Executive Officer was overseen by the Appointments Commission. There were 119 applicants, all of which 12 were locally qualified. 9 candidates were given preliminary interviews, and 3 absolutely outstanding candidates were shortlisted. Interviews took place on 25th of January this year, and I'm pleased to say Katrina McAllister joined the States of Jersey as the designate for Jersey Sport, Chief Executive Officer designate of Jersey Sport, with effect from the 1st of May 2017. She's an exceptional candidate, and the State stand to benefit greatly from having her in post, irrespective of the State's decision today. She's already begun liaising with the island sporting community and planning for the future, and I have every confidence she'll make a very positive impact. If members approve the establishment of Jersey Sport today, Mrs McAllister will transition into the new body with the other sports development staff over the coming few weeks. In terms of governance, having dealt with the rationale for Jersey Sport and its evolution, I would like to spend just a few minutes just on the governance. The relationship between the Minister and Jersey Sport Limited will be governed by a combination of a partnership agreement and agreed annual business plans, which will define the respective roles and responsibilities of the Jersey Sport Board and Executive, the Assistant Minister for EDTSC and officers of EDTSC. This mirrors the model used by the Department in securing compliance and governance at other successful arms-length bodies. The combination of grant agreement, annual schedules and funding arrangements provides the Department with an effective degree of direct control over the activities of the company. And should it be necessary, the trusted enforcer will offer additional scope to ensure that the overall purposes of the Trust are delivered by the company. Funding will be provided through the EDTSC budget and within the agreed cash limits defined in the medium-term financial plan. Jersey Sport will be required to present, agree and deliver an annual business plan with associate outcomes and outputs. The partnership agreement also establishes the need for executives and the board of Jersey Sport to meet with the Assistant Minister on a quarterly basis and share in-depth financial, operational and performance data that will allow the department to monitor the progress of the company and delivery against annual business plan targets. Funding will be provided in equal instalments on a quarterly basis annually, and the provision of reporting requirements plus quarterly ministerial meetings set out, as I've done, will form the basis upon which to release further tranches of funding. I'm going to move on to the quite exceptional input that we've had from the scrutiny panel. While I can stand here and reassure members on governance matters, I'm conscious that some will want to take a closer look at any arm's length body in receipt of a grant from the states, and they'd be absolutely right to do so. In this regard, I'm pleased to refer members to the comments of the Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel, which has been undertaking its own detailed review of the proposition. Panel members have been asking some really searching questions. They've looked at the trust deed, the Articles of Association and the Partnership Agreement. They have proposed various amendments to the structure, and I've accepted a good number of them. They include putting in place a memorandum of understanding between the trustees and the company that more closely establishes the government's arrangements and types of management information that will be shared. Revising enforcer arrangements. Trustees themselves are scrutinised by an enforcer whose role is to enforce the trust in relation to its non-charitable purposes. Following extensive discussions with the panel, steps are in hand to secure the appointment of the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture as the enforcer. This will provide an additional layer of security over the use of public funds with a minimal impact on the operational independence of Jersey Sport Limited. It's also ensuring that Jersey Sport can be in no doubt as to the need to produce audited accounts for annual disclosure to the states in order that the department can comply with financial directions. Having drawn members' attentions to the panel's comments, I should acknowledge the panel's criticism of some elements of this project. While I have a view as to whether all of that criticism is warranted, what matters is that the Jersey Sport structure and government arrangements are materially better as a consequence of scrutiny's involvement. And I thank the chairman and his panel both for its input and for declaring its support. I'm nevertheless mindful that structures such as this are rarely perfect from the outset. I'm also conscious that the Controller and Auditor General have been undertaking a review of the arm's length bodies. To give members additional comfort, I'm more than happy to commit here and now to implementing swiftly any relevant recommendations that may arise in the CNAG's forthcoming report. Sport and physical literacy are a vital component of Jersey's DNA. They have a critical role to play in shaping the reputation of the island. Sport is a positive contributor to the economic, educational, health and community well-being of the island and the deep sense of pride among its population. We might sometimes forget that Jersey's long-established and proud tradition of honorary and voluntary service extends to sport. Thousands of volunteers selfishly give of their time to provide sporting opportunities for all sectors of society, of all ages, and from all backgrounds. We should not only thank those volunteers, we should give them the best environment to succeed. That, sir, is what this proposition is about. Quite simply, I commend this proposition to the Assembly, and I ask members, hopefully, to support it strongly. Thank you.
Proposition seconded.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Does the member wish to speak?
It's just a tiny little inquiry here because we've heard a lot about sport. Are they including the dance in the sport regime? Because dance does a lot for the island, and I was just wondering whether it hasn't actually been mentioned as something, but I would wonder if dance The World Dance competitions have been taking place. I've sponsored quite a few children who live in my parish, can't afford to go. And it's very, very interesting. And I would like to know whether the sport would be including dancing in that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I should probably declare, well, I will declare that I'm the president of the Jersey Sports Council and also vice president of the Jersey Table Tennis Association. I was involved in the early days of the consultation process. We held a meeting of the Jersey Sports Council, and the officers who were progressing this at the time, a few years ago, came and gave a presentation, and I took questions from the floor, and we answered questions at that meeting. And I have to say, at that stage, a couple of years ago, there was some nervousness and unease about what was happening. The people were unsure about funding, and but I think as the time has progressed, that unease and nervousness has fallen away because not only because the funding over the recent years has been secured to a certain extent, and people have felt able to be comforted that there will be appropriate government support for sport. So I do believe this is the right approach, because sporting bodies, they need to be aware that the government are supporting them, and I think this is a way of achieving that as long as we continue to invest in sport as a government organisation. Whilst on my feet, I'll just remind members that as members we'll be playing our Guernsey colleagues at petanque and table tennis in the coming months, so if anybody wants to become involved, please don't hesitate to see our sports minister. And I'm also pleased that the new chief executive will be in the building at table tennis when we're there, so I'm sure she will then be able to see our sporting prowess at the time. So this is a really positive day for our sporting community, and I hope members will get fully behind it, and we can progress sport for our best of our island community.
Thank you, sir. Just very quickly, because I think this is in many terms a no-brainer to support. It's been well thought through. The rationale from the KKP report, the Fit for the Future strategy and onwards, have pointed all in this direction and have led to what we've already heard will be very good governance that should assure everyone that it is the right thing at the right time. The leadership is now in place, and the scrutiny has also been done and been extremely helpful. Added to all of that, may I just add, not because he's an assistant minister in the same department as me, not because he's my connotab, but because of the work over a long period of time which has brought this to today. My congratulations to the connotab of St Brelad for bringing this forward. He's done an absolutely first-class job. So I hope that everyone will support this. Thank you.
Just briefly, sir, because I'm afraid this one, again, looks like it's going to go through fairly on the nod. And I'm drawn to the balance between private and public funding required to support sports on this island. And I wonder, in this case, whether the 1.15 million, which is the funding set aside from the states at the moment, will in the future go up or down. Whether the economy improves or further deteriorates, I think what we will see, as often happens, when revenues go down, the states will say, we can't afford this, you'll have to find some more from private sector. When the economy improves as we go along, we hope it does, we sincerely hope it does, and that it's happening, then the private sector will be making profits. And it's open to the states to say, the balance between private and public is wrong, go and get some more money from the private sector again. Because that's the way things happen. When good things, which are for the good of the community, come in front of this particular Council of Ministers, it's always a question of we don't want to pay for it. Surely there's another way of funding it. And that 1.15 million, again, draws my attention when I notice a few sentences away from that and the running costs and expenses and remuneration of this board amounts to some £95,000. £95,000 of 1.15 million is significant. It's touching the order of 10%. And I'm wondering, yet again, whether we're setting up a board which actually is a little earner for the chairman of that board. When we look, for example, at Andiam Homes, where the chairman gets something like £250,000 in order to drive forward our housing policy, one wonders what will be happening here. It's a much smaller budget, obviously, but nonetheless. Here we go again, divesting ourselves of responsibilities which we should be proud to take on and pushing it into the private sector and paying people in order to administer what we should be doing ourselves and taking responsibility for. We've seen people deny responsibility day in and day out in this chamber, and this is one issue. Maybe some people think it as a minor issue, but nonetheless a solid one, where this House appears to be withdrawing its responsibilities and leaving things to the free market. So, not quite yet made up my mind on this, but I'm certainly tempted, because occasionally I do look at votes through time, and very often, or more often than I would like, it says votes for 48, votes again 1. And that one, too often, happens to be me, because I've spotted the flaw in what's going through, sometimes on the nod, otherwise, sometimes with debate, but nonetheless. I'm very wary of this sort of initiative. I think we have enough boards and we now have enough privatisation. This is something that perhaps we should be taking on responsibility for and maintaining that responsibility, especially in the light of there are a limited number, but nonetheless, a number of people being made redundant effectively through this process. And I'm certainly sceptical of what's happening there.
Do any other member wish to speak?
Thanks.
Teddy.
Thanks, sir. I understand it also comes up on your screen, sir, if you can't see the light, which is often the case with where my light is positioned. So I think what this debate isn't about is whether we support sport, either individually or as an assembly. This is, of course, about how we manage and fund sport into the future. And that's why I'm pleased to follow my Reform Jersey colleague with the words of caution that he raised. Now, I think the reason we say that is because we all value the benefit that sport has to the economy, not just in terms of the economic multiplier, but also, obviously, the social and health benefits that it has. I think that goes without saying, but it's perhaps something that can't be repeated too often. And I would like to ask the Assistant Minister, in summing up, when we look at this 1.15 million, it sounds like a lot, but of course, in the grand scheme of things, when we take into account all of those benefits, both tangible and perhaps more difficult to measure, is not much in the grand scheme of things, given the fact that we know in Jersey already the charitable sector and also the third sector when it comes to sports put a lot of investment in terms of money and energy in that, and they need to be commended for that. So I would like to ask what we spend in terms of sport, in terms of our GDP compared to other places. I don't have those figures to hand, but I suspect we are not as generous as some governments are with their funding of it. And of course, it's a long-term benefit as well. But also, I'd like to just, if you can't answer it now, I understand that, but the economic multiplier effect of sport, like the arts indeed, is one that's significant, but perhaps not always easy to measure. And I'm glad that the Constable of St Saviour raised the issue of dance, because of course that's something which crosses both the arts and the sports. And we've had a great dance competition that came to Jersey. That was very successful, and that focused more on the sporting side, arguably. But of course, the Arts Centre and the like have hosted very good high-level dance, interpretative dance in the past, which is also very successful, perhaps for different audiences, but nonetheless very effective. I'm concerned about creating yet another board. Without wanting to make probably the worst pun of the day, I think we're bored of boards in many ways. And I would say to members who have concerns, don't simply get sucked into this groupthink about, okay, we all want to support sport, therefore we need to support the Assistant Minister. Because I know the Minister knows a lot about sport and in various ways, and I'm sure he's got both private and public opinions which he can share on the issue. And I know we've spoken in the past about these things. But what I would say to members is don't be sucked into setting up yet another level of bureaucracy. Are we happy with boards generally? Are we happy with the concept of shadow boards? Are we happy with Andium? Are we happy with States of Jersey Development Company? Are we happy at many of our institutions being set up at an arm's length where we actually give up control over them, that when it comes to making decisions, we're told constantly in this Assembly, sorry, I can't take questions on that anymore. That's not a matter for us. That's a minister for the board. Well, will you raise it with the board? Well, I'm not sure. It might be overstepping my mark to do that. But we want you to raise it with the board, Minister. Well, I'm not really sure I'll do that. It's not appropriate. I could perhaps have a word, but the board, of course, have got my full confidence. And when we hear the likes of, I know we're not talking about States of Jersey Development Company, sir, but we are talking about the concept of boards and whether or not to endorse this. When we hear about the bosses there being given a bonus and effectively a pay increase to the order of 10 to 15%, when they haven't actually done anything, let's face it, there's no progress or no success that can be claimed of the development at the waterfront yet, certainly, and if there will be in the future, certainly now is not the time for them to be giving themselves a pat on the back or a big bonus. And that really smacks in the face of workers who are being faced with redundancy and, ironically, privatisation, often at the hands of the creation of shadow boards and the like. There's something wrong at the heart of government. So we can say, yes, of course we support our sportsmen, women and children in the island and the institutions and clubs that do a very good job already, but at the same time raising a word of caution. I think if members have learned anything, don't press the pause button today just because you feel that's an automatic thing you have to do, when actually all the empirical evidence is that boards at best are questionable, and in many cases the evidence is there that they're not working effectively. We've given up too much of our power as an assembly, and we don't have the mechanisms and levers to address problems as they arise in that area.
Proposed adjournment, sir.
Adjournment's proposed. State's now stand adjourned, and we will resume at 2:15 this afternoon.